wrong button. Why am I purple now? What's going on here? Actually better. That's brighter. I like that one more. We'll go with the old one. Alright, anyways. I don't know if I like it that bright. It's fine. Whatever. How are we all? Red was kind of vibe. Should I go back with the red? What do you think? That could be kind of interesting. Let's see here. Then sort of increase the saturation a little bit. Now I just look baked. Ugh. Now I look like I have jaundice. Lower the saturation a little bit. Let's lower the brightness. Let's change the hue a bit more red. That's just purple. Oh, you need the saturation up. Lower the contrast though. Increase the gamma. That is definitely a look. I will grant you that. Okay. That's looking a sickly yellow, isn't it? Just be better off if I just did that. Increase that a little bit, actually. Yeah, we're sticking with this for now. I will work out a lighting system soon, and it will be more interesting, but for the time being. No red, red bad. I agree. Especially after my day with Bad Empanada. Just constantly change the color. Hey, you know what? If I can make it cycle through colors, that could actually be kind of interesting. That actually could be an interesting look. I'll think about that. I need to get more than just the one ring light. I need, like... I have an additional ring light that I need to put onto a mount, so it's sort of behind my microphone. I don't think it should cast a shadow. The graininess is actually kind of a good look, though. Let's see here. So if we put... well, what if we do this? Like, just increase the sharpness. So let's, like... oh, that changes nothing. That's so subtle. Although increasing the sharpness then might not be a bad idea, so if we look up close... I don't know if increasing the sharpness is actually a bad idea. I know Kidology, awful channel, but they have their sharpness way up. Anyways, what are we doing today? Horrible, horrible things. Horrible things we will all regret. Well, first off, we need to deal with a industrial wasteland filled with reanimated corpses. I am, of course, talking about the conversation between Kidology and Brittany Simons. We will also be playing some Dead Space in the meantime, because I do not want to be focusing 100% on them. Afterwards, apparently, Kidology has another Why I Left the Left video, which is embarrassing for obvious reasons, so we'll kind of passively listen to that as well. This is going to be a more chill stream. The more structured or pointed one, rather, is going to be on Monday, where we actually go into the erudite stuff. We're going to be covering Poppy and Xena's and someone else's review of that. We might have some additional comments of our own to make by then. But tonight's going to be relatively low-key. Does your camera have autofocus on? I don't believe it does. I hope it doesn't, because it's not good. What if I just... I'm almost tempted to just take the sharpness off entirely. Back to where it was before. Yeah, so webcam YouTube goes over here. Then YouTube goes over here. Boom. And then Dead Space goes down in Zakana. But I suppose that's gets turned on first. By the way, did anybody see that Keffel's Twitter space thing? Apparently that was an event. Oh yeah, and I've asked Wednesday to prioritize the Haas conversation / debate / train wreck from last night, so that'll be up on the channel soon. I don't know about the rest of it. The VOD will be up on the archive channel probably by tomorrow. That was a 6-hour stream though, so it might take a while to process. Twitter Space, what did she do? Well, apparently she and one other person had a massive group debate off the cuff with a huge number of fairly large transphobic figures from Andy No onwards. I don't understand what the plan is with any of this, but it's not my job to know such things. Well. What's the vote at so far? What level is Kidology? Talking to Brittany Simons, I suspect Brittany Simons is going to rank her at either a 4 or a 5. Because Brittany Simons, I mean, the whole scheme is stupid, but Brittany Simons is actually an idiot. And probably a narcissist. And so if they get on, that will increase her level. Remember, this person ranks Malcolm X as a 2. As a relatively unself-aware, sort of servile persona, kind of a midwit, because he's an activist who believes in God. Anyways, Kidology finally talking to Brittany Simon. Dear God. This is 4 days old.
Salutations.
Hola.
How are we?
I feel like death. How are you?
Apologies for being late, as always. Oh gosh, all my streaming software has updated.
That's some one behavior being late.
Very snazzy. Okay.
That's not the CEO. That's not the CEO mindset.
Fancy. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, hello. How are we? How is everybody doing? Oh, hello, Katie. Lovely to see you. Hello. I'm sure I saw the relic somewhere. Alicia, hello. Lovely to see you. Sarondium, lovely to see you too. Julian, likewise. Hello. Oh yes, we've already got dislikers. Oh my goodness. Oh, 'tis the life. Oh, okay. I can see who my moderators are with this whole new update. Very, very snazzy. I am impressed. Hello, Joshua Craig. Lovely to see you too. Oh, okay. I'm getting used to this. Hello, Yasmin. Lovely to see you. Hello, Marina. Lovely to see you too. Sorry, it's going to be one of those. I can already feel it. I'm not going to be able to articulate myself. Emanuela, lovely to see you. TM, Ciara or Kiara, lovely to see you as well. Oh, gosh. Well, gosh, we have had a busy few weeks, I guess we could say. Raquel or Rochelle, no, my accent is not British, even though that is that is a bit of controversy online. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's not. It's sort of semi South African, a bit of British, a bit of white South African, white British. So it's just an amalgamation of a lot of different cultures and history. So, you know, it is what it is, and we accept it and we go with it. But yes. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much, Alyssa. Thank you. That's so kind of you. When are we getting Do Better? Soon. This year. I actually have a document on my phone of merch ideas. I'm just, before I forget, I'm going to put that down as an option. What's it? Do better. There we go. Perfect. Do better. Thank you. I will credit you for that idea. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Oh, that would be very, very naughty, but I'm all for that, of course. Oh, we've got some other South Africans here. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Hello. How are things going? With Cyril and his couch full of hundreds of thousands of rands. Gosh, politics is... You see, this is why I'm not political. It's either just a caricature or it's just misery. And you know what? Why bring that into your personal life? It is not worth it at all. Seiji Ogre. Oh, nice. Very interesting name. Very beautiful profile picture. Have you thought about doing narration? You have such a lovely soft voice. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, you know, ideally, sort of in my head, I guess, when I sort of imagine my ideal life, I sort of yonder down over to some studio to record an audiobook. But I'm not really sure how you get into something like that. I mean, yes, it sounds interesting. Who knows? Maybe one day somebody will want me to read their book or something. If any of you are writers and you need an audiobook, do give me a ring on one of my social medias. Much appreciated. So thank you very much. So anyway, just to lay everything out for this evening, I'm going to be talking in approximately 15 minutes or so with Brittany Simon. I accidentally always say Brittany Simone, just because whenever I see anything resembling Simone de Beauvoir, I think Simone, even if it's Simon. I will call little boys,
Brittany Simon, the famous
Simone.
theorist of just getting in touch with your inner motherliness.
I'm going to probably mess that up a bit. But yes, I'm going to be talking to Brittany Simon, and I'm very much looking forward to it, because I've been watching Brittany Simon for years now, quite a few years. I definitely consider her my virtual mentor, and
well, that's
I find
intriguing.
her incredibly
I did not know
intriguing and an incredible conversationalist. I mean, that is her job, her career, her profession, her vocation as a professional conversationalist. So I'm very much looking forward to this, very, very much so. So yes, I hope we can all have a good time. And then later on this week, on Wednesday, I believe it is, quite late actually, I think it's at 7 Eastern time, which is in the UK at 11:30 p.m. I'm going to be talking with a Twitch streamer called Stardust, who is going to be talking to me about my video on the left, hence the do better video. So I'm very much looking forward to that because I have also been following Stardust for a while. And then on Saturday or Sunday, I'm not sure which of the days yet, I'm going to be talking to Sisyphus55,
I have
who
no idea who that
has
is.
a huge YouTube channel and makes videos about sort of also modern society, modern life, modern people. And I'm going to be talking to him, that is Ben, on his podcast.
Oh,
So
painful. All right.
that will be
Let's look this person up. Sisyphus 55. It is a big channel. 654,000 subscribers. The most savage philosopher of all time. Oh, he's been in it for a while. What have we got here? In search of healthy masculinity. I answer your questions. Oh, it's that guy. I haven't seen this guy in forever. Oh, he makes those bullshit self-help videos. I know who this is. Okay, let's see. What's he got here? He must have something good. He's got one on personality disorders. That's typical fodder. Essays.
Recently,
This is from 2 years ago. This is Donald Glover is an existentialist.
I read a New Yorker interview with Donald Glover, an actor, musician, writer, and director. I noticed and appreciated Glover's existentialist sentiment regarding life itself. Unintentionally tapping into the philosophy of absurdism, Glover and his brother endured a tough childhood and through this came to share an understanding that life was a bad dream and that laughter was a way to wake yourself up. Glover also talks about the world as a computer program. When people become depressed and kill themselves, it's because all they see is the algorithm, the loop. Glover sees himself as a hacker, using hard work and self-confidence as his superpower. Much like Camus' Sisyphus, who embraces the process of existence with a lucid awareness and autotelic ambition.
Alright. Screw that.
be interesting as well. So yes, we've got a lot happening this week.
Hang on, wait a minute. Is this 30 minutes of just talking about talking to Brittany Simon? Oh, there she is. Okay.
Should have known. Brittany Simon is completely out of touch. She's a product of a sick society, fully cocooned by a Californian liberal, terminally online bubble. Okay, Lord's Need. Watch Brittany Simone. Brittany Simon. I said I would do this. I said I would call Brittany Simone the whole. I'm so sorry. Please watch Brittany Simon. This is the same sort of rhetoric as when people say Jordan Peterson is a misogynist or Jordan Peterson is transphobic. Watch Jordan Peterson. Watch everything. I know that it's a lot of time, but watch Jordan Peterson. Watch Brittany Simon. And you will see you're completely wrong about that. I'm so sorry. But yes, I love you, the Lord's needs. You make my life very exciting, very interesting. But please watch Brittany Simon because, yes, it will.
I'd be nervous too if I was saying something that monumentally stupid. Let's take a little look at what Jordan Peterson's been up to on Twitter recently. Because I guarantee you there will be something from the last 24 hours. Because there always is, because he's insane. He's just gone nuts. What have we got here? Da, 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 da. we've got him ranting about them having a, a role hire in indigenous feminisms, calling for a professor who will study gendered and sexualized disparities alongside the dispossessions of settler colonialism. That's apparently a massive joke to him. Dear God, he's got like, this guy tweets like 50 times a day. I don't even know why I'm looking for something, because we have, we already have, what's his face? The Juno guy. He was going after him, just felt like for an entire month. Apparently he's been on the Marxists today, not the gender ideologues. Apparently gender fluidity only works in one direction. At Mr. Andy No. Oh. I did not expect to see this. Oh boy. This looks like a doozy. Is this real? Jordan Peterson drops a bombshell on Joe Rogan that 80% of trans kids are actually gay but being pushed into the gender ideology, and it makes a lot of sense. People are much more likely born gay.
90. Then you have the kids who don't fit in on the gender front. That's a different pathway.
Here, let's get the whole thing in.
Then you have the kids who don't fit in on the gender front. That's a different pathway. But with them, if you leave them alone, so do no harm, leave them alone. 90% of them accept their body, their sex, by age 18 or 19. And 80% of them are gay. So what that also means is, and the gay community is going to wake up to this sooner or later, is that most of the kids being sterilized and mutilated are gay. 80% of them. So I don't see how the LGBT alliance is going to hold up under that sort of reality.
Well, it's held up for the past...
Yeah.
It's held up for the past 100 years because you're referring to eugenics approaches to gender and sexuality that, well, I mean, they're the reason why the Hirschfeld Library was burned down. We are talking about, like, early 20th century stuff. I think the LGBTQ plus overlord cabal will survive this brush with death.
Oh, yeah, very important. So anyway, okay, let's begin. I'm very, very excited about this.
Oh, me
okay,
too. Me too, kiddo. Me too.
Oh, wait, let me get my camera. Okay, and let me add a guest, and let me then
What the hell am I doing here?
assign Brittany guest 1. Okay, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. It's on my default mic, which I think is a shit mic. Does that sound bad?
Yes.
It doesn't sound bad. No, not at all. Is that okay, or do you have a problem with it?
Well, here's the question I have, because I am a boomer, so I'm really bad with tech. If my camera is being used by your program, how do I get it on my stream without just like, it will just like host these two videos, but they're not side by side. Like nothing is. I don't know how to do this as a boomer.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. should I call you on Discord and then
Maybe,
Or do
but
you
then
want
I
to?
don't think. Well, I think your program wants to use my camera and mic. Otherwise, it wouldn't let me join. So how? What is this for? Is this to record it to post it later?
Oh yes, yes. This is on my live stream.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out because, like, the way I see it, and tell me if I'm wrong. You're on a Chrome thing, and the Chrome is taking up my mic and webcam, which now I can't host to my OBS because I can't pull unless I pull from this stream.
I feel like I've heard that stat before. It didn't hold up to scrutiny. The study just been creative categorization in math. I haven't looked into it. The main thing is, though, is that one of the reasons why people often find that trans people who are not being given treatment or whatever. I mean, first of all, if you have no access to treatment whatsoever, at a certain point, you're going to have to just live with what you've got. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are no longer trans. It might mean that they're coping, right? They're just dealing with an intractable situation. When you look at the history of the emergence of psychologists even talking about trans people at all, they initially construed them as a well an extreme form of homosexuality, because they characterized homosexuality. It's kind of reversed, actually. They characterized homosexuality as being an adopting or a possessing of the traits of the opposite sex, because they were dogmatically, sometimes religiously, very heteronormative regarding any sex or romantic relationships that were not heterosexual as inherently pathological. Just as a baseline assumption. And so trans people were initially, before they were called trans people, were categorized as inverts. So they were people who suffered from a state of inversion. They were men who had the qualities of women to a more extreme degree than simply gay men did. That'd be trans women on that analysis, and the converse for trans men. So that's the level that Jordan Peterson is operating at. He's operating at well, he's quite literally just onboarding the dogma of eugenicists.
Stream directly, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, window captured this stream.
Yeah. Yes, I
But
see
then
what you mean.
you're really big and I'm really small, so now I'm very confused.
Okay, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay. Do you want to go and then if you call me on Discord and I
We'll
can
operate
like
that way?
try and fix something.
Okay,
with
let's try
that.
that way.
Okay,
Let's
okay.
try it
See you in
that
a
way.
bit.
Okay, I'll just
Yes.
X out. Okay.
Okay, yes.
Oh
yes.
my
Okay,
God.
bye. Bye. Okay, okay. We're going to make this work, even if it means that we're going to move over to Brittany's channel.
Oh
Okay,
God,
so,
do they do that? Oh no, is that actually what happens?
this one. Okay, okay.
Is the whole conversation just them figuring out their technical stuff? Hang on, one moment. Oh my God, guys. Seriously. Okay, here we go. This is the one we want. Good God. Okay, this is from 6... Oh, that's why I couldn't find it. This one's from 6 hours ago. Okay, it all makes sense now. Brittany Simon and Kidology in Deep Conversation.
Salutations, salutations. How are we? How are we? Hello, Yasmin. Lovely to see you.
No, it's not.
Brittany Simone is basically the co-founder of, I would say it's a philosophical system of thinking introspectively about not just yourself, but your place in the world, in a world.
Okay, for those who are unaware, Brittany Simon's level system is a narcissistic way for categorizing people upon a number scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ones being basically natural slaves who should be done away with by society because they're just basically a burden, but they're too stupid to off themselves by themselves. 5 being ascended intellectual philosopher kings like Brittany Simon's. To put this into perspective, once again, she regards Malcolm X as a 2. she regards people who are engaged in party politics or whatever as, I think, twos and threes. Activists categorically are twos. Fives and fours will almost never deign to be two, or never deign to get engaged in activism or whatever. It's just it's idiotic. It's a self-serving, idiotic, harebrained bit of amateur hour. I don't even know what you call it. It's like Scientology with none of the charm.
World that is inevitable chaos, and you can't get around that. You can't get past that. It is what it is, and it's about, I would say, accepting that, but also trying to develop greater introspection in yourself in this world, and trying to reach a point of sort of enlightenment. Not enlightenment in the sort of very traditional way that we think, enlightenment such as moving or progressing toward a point of truth.
No,
Samuel, it's
no,
not a cult.
the more
I
stupid
assure
kind
you.
of enlightenment, where it's just you feel
And
good about yourself for nothing.
the idea of the levels is, I think it's quite misleading just in how we understand the idea of levels as being linear and sort of being this idea of progression upward, which it isn't. I, for instance, would consider myself, I consider myself a two, right? And that's not a bad thing at all. And I'm definitely not a happy two. I'm not the kind of two that I would like to be. A two being somebody who is accepting of the way that the world sort of is, with its sort of moral systems, family, religion, a moral system to abide by. Doesn't really question things too much. But I think the dilemma of being a two is that sometimes you find yourself faced with the contradictions of the world.
Why would you abase yourself that way?
The story that you tell yourself, and sometimes that can lead to
This got sad. This is sad now. Now I just feel bad. Ugh.
nihilism. Other times you just ignore that and just let it be, or you just look to the idea of, say, a god who is a higher truth and authority, and contradictions don't matter. You know, it doesn't matter that you know, you live in a world in which evil things happen, or maybe that's not a good example. It isn't a contradiction that you believe that Jesus walked on water, but clearly that's not something that humans do. So, you know, there's sort of those things you reckon with.
Well, no, it's not a thing humans do, but the narrative assumes that he has divine power and or is God, depending on what sect you're a part of. Moreover, you're a two in Brittany Simon's worldview for accepting the existence of God, or for believing in God, or for any kind of higher power or whatever. Not for believing falsely in a narrative of somebody doing something strange at one given time. Although we should probably include that as well, because this is not what I would call precise or scientific by any stretch of the imagination.
But there's also different sort of subsections of each level. And the idea is that certain people inevitably are at different levels of introspection, just as a result, as a consequence of being human.
So there's one of two possibilities of what's going on here. Either she is actually just completely onboarding Brittany Simon's leveling system and abasing herself in the most sad way possible. Like, have some dignity, lady. Or she's being extraordinarily cynical. Cynical to a degree I'm not entirely certain she's clever enough to be, but it's possible. She may actually be that clever. Where she is calling herself A2 precisely to elicit sympathy from her audience. Because here is one thing you never, ever, ever, ever want to do, is let your audience think, in some cases know, that you think you're smarter than them. I do not, by the way. Or do I? No, I don't. And the massive amount of help I need with respect to research, etc., bears that out. But you do not want to do that, because now you are threatening to your audience. Not in the sense that they believe you that you're smarter than them, but now they think you think that you're smarter than them. And so they think that you don't really view them as equals because you don't. That's the immediate upshot of that. What on earth is going on here? Why is on Spotify is actually music playing?
And it's fascinating. And I would say that the levels have...
Oh, and these are live. She must just have Spotify music playing at the same time. Interesting. Where are these taking place then? Is there like a main channel elsewhere? All right, well.
Don't tell Brittany this, but the levels have really helped me, and helped me from when I was a student, to try and accept my identity, accept who I am. Here we go.
And this is the massive problem with any kind of scheme system, from this levels bullshit to IQ. One of the things that it does is it convinces people not to try because it sets artificial limits on what they are capable of. And so they make peace not with the reality, not with the harsh facts of the matter, but with a scheme that dictates to them what their limits are far in advance of doing any actual serious investigation. And I think that's a really depressing thing to do. I think it's actually one of the it's the rape of the human spirit. I think it's an awful thing to do. I think Brittany Simon's trying to normalize a categorization system by which people associate themselves with, by which people, if they adhere to it, will think of themselves as incapable of achieving anything meaningful, or of like efforts to be more than what they are as pointless and doomed to failure. I think it's one of the greatest harms you can do to your society. You're encouraging young people not to try. You're encouraging people to give up, to not investigate too hard, to not think. You're encouraging people to just fall in line with somebody else who they, in their ignorance in the moment, have wrongfully considered to be greater than they are. I think it's an absolutely abhorrent thing that Brittany Simons is engaging
in this world, and to not be ashamed of it, but also to not be sanctimonious and self-satisfied in it, that it is just a part of being human, who you are, and that you need to...
Yeah, good. It's actually true, Robin Page. It's a direct analogy. You can't do that, you're a 2, quote unquote. Replace that number with a race to suggest how cringe it really is. Exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Just face that. So I am very, very pro the levels. The levels isn't, as I said, it's not a linear thing at all. It really isn't.
It is. It's a linear scale, 1 to 5.
The quality or otherwise of your life at all.
Kiddo, is that what she's called? Kiddo? I'm calling her Kiddo. Brittany Simons says ones are only too stupid to kill themselves. That's what she says. She thinks they are worthy of death and extermination. They are just too stupid to figure it out. That's what she thinks.
You can be living the greatest life on earth and be a 1, okay? I mean...
No.
We see that.
No, you can't. You can't. You don't even understand the level system. It's psychotic.
With so many people, for instance, you can be living the worst life on earth and be a 5. Do we want to
bring that up, actually? Hang on. Let's see here. Brittany Simon's level system. The levels, a way to observe your own introspection. Here we are.
Hello, future worm food. My name is Brittany, and I'm a stupid person on the internet who has...
Yes, you are. Yes, you very, very much are.
The levels. Now, this is important, and this is kind of the big disclaimer of the video. There are 3 specific reactions I tend to get when I share this. And if you feel like you might be any of them, consider either not finishing the video and exercising your free will and going to do something else, or just keep it in mind as you watch. The first reaction are people who love exploring the idea with me, they have a good time, and it's just something they think is silly, but they also... But I don't mean in terms of...
Here we go. Level 1, the unsatisfied fool.
to show you the levels and talk to you about them, but please remember to care for your own mental health through this process. Level 1 is the unsatisfied fool. Often these people can be examined as lower functioning humans, but I don't mean in terms of ability. I mean in terms of choices. They're people who have every reason to succeed: money, access, support, and some don't, but in general they usually do. And they, for some reason, are self-sabotagers. They cannot find satisfaction in existence. They're usually so unsatisfied with existence that they're even so useless that they can't kill themselves as a way not to be a burden on people or society. They're kind of like the virus of society. They cling to existence and to breathing our oxygen, but will in no way, shape, or form, no matter how much help they get better.
Okay, so kiddo, just so you know, you have ranked yourself one level above that. That's where you are. You're in illustrious company. Malcolm X, once again, for whatever reason, Brittany Simon sees fit to single out as an example of a 2. But
It really doesn't determine at all your quality of life or how good or not you are at life. But I think that's where people get...
How do you not understand like a bullshit scheme like Brittany Simon's and yet try to, like, she doesn't even understand the levels. Like, so she has to just be lying here. She can't be familiar with Brittany Simon's at all. She must just be, is it Simons or Simon? Brittany Simon. Like, she has to just be lying to just get in the good graces of Brittany Simon, because she doesn't even understand what a level 1 is. She's just been, Brittany is very, very clear. A level 1 is defined by lacking satisfaction. They can't have a positive existence at all. They can't even do the positive, apparently, according to her. They can't even do a solid to society and just get rid of themselves and stop being a drain, because they just don't have the wherewithal somehow. You can't be a 1 and have a satisfactory life. That's why she characterizes them as a virus. Congratulations, you're one stage above a virus on your quote-unquote mentor's worldview.
A bit confused with it or don't like it, this idea that, oh, you're a this or you're a that. And it's not that simple. Different situations in my life, I feel, oh, I'm a bit more of a 4 in this area, in this bubble, say, or this sphere of people and interests. Or on the other hand, I'd say that most of my life I feel like I'm a 2. I really do. And it is coming to accept that, but also how do I navigate that? How do I navigate the contradictions of my beliefs? How do I navigate other bubbles of people, especially people who feel that they are right, that their understanding of reality, of their reality, is reality for everybody. You know, I think I've definitely had to navigate that these last few weeks with the whole FD signifier thing, sort of being faced with people who have a very particular idea of reality that affects them, their sphere, their interests, hence their bubble of interests and their bubble of understanding and their truth, projecting that as being the truth of reality and of the world. And yeah, I found it quite difficult to respond to that in a way that I feel humanized. I think I felt very, very dehumanized, very degraded.
Lady, you just classified yourself as one stage above a virus.
So I'll be very happy to talk to FD Signifier at some point. I think we need to clarify some things. So yes, it'll be interesting, very interesting. But right now, I'm ready for Brittany. So yes, and I really like Brittany. Brittany is very, very down to earth and very, very unique in being a person who has this whole repertoire of
Being cynical and bubbly is not being down to earth. Brittany is insane. She's insane. She lives in a fantasy land in her head, and it's not a pretty place to anybody with any self-awareness.
honestly a very, very insightful, incredibly detailed, and very well thought out philosophical system. But then at the same time, she says, you know, I know nothing. Seeing you with the levels and how you just articulate yourself and speak about
Here
the
we go,
world
okay.
and just your experiences and your life and your family,
What am I
especially.
supposed to do with the centrifuge?
I think that really opened my eyes to how actually it isn't all about academia and that bubble, and that doesn't give you
That way.
any sort of knowledge that is exclusive to you. That
Yeah.
doesn't really doesn't matter as much at all insofar as how you see the world and other people. So I think that got me out of sort of that bubble of academia, sort of like washed me out of it a bit, out of that room. And that was very helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
in
What it does is it encourages people who Brittany Simons deems in her infinite arrogance to be beneath her to not try. It's scary because, like, the average person is actually probably smart enough to recognize what a piece of shit Brittany is. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's because she sees benefit in abasing herself in public before Brittany. I don't know if she actually buys this. But Kiddo's just flat out declaring herself to be an inferior human being on the basis of this loser kook's random pretense at being some kind of I don't know. She's not a psychologist. She's not anything as far as I am aware.
getting from a point of being in academia,
Look,
then not having enough money.
Not so erudite is more qualified than Brittany Simons, which is saying something because she's not qualified for much.
To and having all of that falling through and
Yeah.
having to immerse myself in the real world again, and sort of being very scared of that, very not having been in that world for years. And the levels really helped me with that, and with actually trying to navigate the chaos and myself, and realizing that I'm not
Chaos.
really the shit in the way that I sort of thought I was at uni,
Didn't we all?
and having to yes, and sort of having to
Yeah, but
really
some of us
just
grew out of it, unlike
introspect
Brittany.
a lot. So yeah.
Okay, first of all, like super emotional for me because like I really appreciate my work and I appreciate when other people appreciate it just because it really helped me. Like I had to create my work to help myself, which was kind of funny, right? Because there wasn't the resources that I needed in every bubble I was visiting. They gave me a lot of wisdom though. But I still needed something else, like maybe a different wording or maybe to counter that ego. Like I remember my therapist, the one I loved, told me like, yeah, you can't save the world. I was like, are you sure? Because I was educated in America where they told me I was the next Martin Luther King Jr. So you wanna update yourself, therapist? And she's like, do you want to update yourself? And I was like, okay. And so like she had to really ground me. She had to really ground me and tell me like, girl, you are not going to save the world. But that was truly not what I was learning growing up my whole life. I was learning that I was a Tumblr goddess, that I was gonna change the world by either like being a conservative when I was with the Republicans, they're like, you're so smart, you're gonna bring the world to the right. And then when I was at the left, they're like, yes, like another fierce, aggressive woman, like making it clear, debating these men, debating Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, like, but then overall, as I was there in those circles, I wasn't as satisfied with the work as I thought I should have been.
Yes.
And so there wasn't a joy there. And that's what made me wonder, like, what am I doing? Which is why I left YouTube for 6 months, like after a whole debacle. I guess you would know about it, I suppose. But just like a whole thing with my stalker and everything, I left. And then I came back and now I'm in this area of YouTube with you and Steven and Kyla and everyone else. And I'm wondering why. And
I know it's interesting how everybody Steven loops around himself is an egomaniacal, sociopathic, grifting narcissist cult leader, isn't it?
I wonder if it's the same for you. This feels a lot better. A lot more grounded. Why do you think that is?
What?
Interesting
What
question.
are you talking about?
I think it's because there's never a point where I sort of think, okay, I know everything that there is to know about everyone who I'm talking to, everybody who I'm seeing, and I sort of have it all
Okay,
worked
no, Brittany. The reason why you can't save the world is not because you in particular are just too weak to spread your goodness. The reason why you can't save the world is because you having any kind of active directing influence on the world would be to make it hell. You are one of the most quintessentially bad people I have ever seen. You're a one, Brittany.
out. I have sort of a map of objectivity
Mm.
of what is the right thing for everybody, not just myself, but for everybody, and sort of having to
President Sunday versus Brittany Simon Wen. I have to make Hawes cry first, one at a time.
really, it's sort of a lot of work, just a lot of mental work, just
Although
navigating.
between you and me, Hawes over this lunatic any day of the week. Seriously, I think Hawes is not as bad as this person.
Okay, why do people see the world in the way that they do, and why don't I see it that way? And there's just always something to learn. There's always something to see in just, I mean, the communities on YouTube, on Twitter, everything is just anarchy. But it also is just also very much reality. I think you've said like a lot that sort of the world is chaos and that is just inevitable, and that is sort of just something that you need to face rather than trying to sort of fix that or believing that you can fix that. And I think that was something that I had to learn after sort of my world went up in shambles after university and my funding falling through. Suddenly there wasn't sort of that plan. And at first I was blaming the world. Oh, it's the world's fault. Like, there's no meritocracy. Like, it's because I'm an ethnic minority. It's this institutionalized racism, structural inequalities, all of these things. And it was helpful for a while.
Here's your problem. Institutionalized racism, etc., etc. These are explanations for trends. These are not things that you can use as a discrete explanation of your particular circumstance, just out of hand. Because you will not in every single case find a direct link between A and B on these points. That's not how that works. Quite probably that fit in at some level, but that doesn't matter. You don't diagnose your own academic career by reference to that, and you certainly don't, on the flip side, just switch it around and go, well, I was successful in YouTube afterwards, and I abased myself by adopting a level system by a weird indie cult leader on YouTube. Therefore, clearly this was just a coping mechanism, and this like sociological explanation for outcome trends in a specific given society that is being paid attention to by tons and tons of people who are vastly more serious about what they're studying than you are. That's just bogus, clearly. That's not how you do any of this. I think the reason why Kiddo did not succeed in academia is because she herself in particular doesn't have a proclivity to it. As she said, thought she was the shit, is not as smart as she thinks she is, and just didn't try. I think she didn't try. I think she approached it with an extraordinary degree of arrogance. I think she's lying when she says she was anything other than kind of like a surface level, I'm sort of lefty to get along with other people because that's kind of how I interpret the people around me. A lot of people did that back in the day. Most people in university are still most people who are entrenched in university, who have offices, are actually conservative, are very much not on the left. That is a myth.
Sort of like a placebo effect. But then in the long term, it just didn't add up. It didn't come together in a satisfactory way that in any way gave me sort of drive or purpose or a purpose to sort of keep going on.
That being said, the best academics in the social sciences, in the humanities and history, etc., most of them are on the left or are pretty damn close. There's a reason for that.
With life to sort of realize, okay, this happened, but now something else is going to happen, and I can do something else, and I can sort of go on and find meaning in other things.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
You can make peace with your being one step above a virus and just kind of live your best 2 life, I suppose.
so I've gone on a whole scenic route here.
I figure we will, girl. P.S. I figure our talk
Yes.
now will just be that. But if you want to derail, let me know because I have a follow-up question to what you just said. So go.
Yes. Oh yes, yeah. So I think that's really why I think I've sort of really found myself, I guess, at home a bit more with creators such as yourself, such as Not So Erudite, Kyla. I would say I haven't ever spoken to Destiny, but in terms of Destiny
You haven't?
content, he says, no, I haven't.
Why does everyone
Spoken
think
to
you?
Daddy
Because everyone was
Destiny.
like, "Haven't you heard her talk to Steve?" And I was like, "I think I have." And everyone has this like, "Have you not?"
No, I mean it's a dream of mine, but I'm also very, very passive. Like I've wanted to talk to you for ages. And like, whenever I check my emails, I'm like, oh, scrolling through. And then when your email came through, I was like, oh my goodness.
It's
I'm
happened.
so passive in
That's so
relationships and everything.
interesting.
I never make the first move. So yes.
I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did, girl.
I'm
I
so
have
happy
been.
you did.
I've been telling my audience, I was like, I'm gonna hit this girl up. Give me a second. I try to only hit the like contact content creators that I have an idea of what I want to talk to them about, instead of just like, just having them on to have them on. I think would be really boring. But I've been watching your content. I've been consuming it pretty regularly, and something that stood out to me is that I don't know exactly where to place you sometimes. And so, like, I look at Abba and Preach, and it's pretty clear, like, I know where you've come from. I could tell you your whole life story. And, like, I appreciate where you've ended up. Like, I really like Abba and Preach, and I love my friendship with Abba and everything. Yeah. And I hope to have one with Preach maybe in the future. But I really appreciate them. And you can see where they've, like, how they've grown and where they've come from. Like, it's amazing to me. Yes. Their story makes sense. Even Kyla, like, I'm like, perfect. Steven makes sense. But for you, every time I watch your content, I'm like, so I don't get it. Are you academia? Are you a rebel? Are you like a leftist who's gone more right? Or are you a centrist? Like, I'm looking at you, and what I'm seeing is sort of a curious person, but also maybe slightly passive, in a sense that you'll make these statements. Like, one time I remember I got really upset with you because you said like something about something about dating and how you have like a hard time dating. And I was like, okay, if this bitch has a hard time dating, I'm fucked. Like, what? And then I'm looking at you and I just think you're so lovely and so bright and so like interesting. How could you have a hard time dating? But then it made me wonder, like, okay, what is this person's journey in relation to like being attractive or finding a mate? Because, and like, sometimes you'll bring up details about yourself where I'm like, why does this even matter? And I'm like, oh, this must be the bubble. Like, sometimes you'll mention your hair, and I'm like, in my world, like, hair is like wearing a jacket. It's like, girl, you got 20. So like, in my head as a person, like, I'm just like, I don't know, like, what is this? And then I'm like, okay, what so I don't even understand the bubble you're from. And I would love to know more. You don't either? So tell me about it. Like, what is it? Like, what is something my American brain can, like, because you're from South Africa, you said?
Yes.
But you live in UK.
Yes.
Okay, so everyone thinks your accent's English, but it's not.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
I get a lot of, I'm posh, I'm privileged, I'm all, all these things. But yes. So, I think a lot of my not knowing what bubbles I fit into is because of sort of my upbringing and just my life. It's very much been a life that's been projected onto me. Very much one of, when I was born, I was born to, long story short, I was born to a South African prostitute. I have an older brother. She abandoned us on the street one day and just left us. We were picked up. Then we were separated. And I was fostered by a white family who then, the mother of that family adopted me. But she had lots of mental illnesses, everything, tried to end her life many times. So she was in an institution. And so I was fostered by different white South Africans. And so I didn't grow up with my tribe, my Zulu South African tribe. Lots of contention there. Also because my biological mother was a erect woman, that was a bad thing as well. So yeah, it was sort of moving around to lots of different white families who were quite intent on perceiving me as white, and then seeing that in sort of a good way, like, I'm not black. But then on the other hand, black South Africans not having a good relationship, I would say, at all with black South Africa. And that always caused a lot of problems for me with identity, with sort of
course,
accepting who I am, how I look, etc., all that good stuff. And and also just living with different white South Africans, like very wealthy white South Africans and then very poor white South Africans. So it was like two extremes. And so sort of this idea of white is privilege or white people have an advantage really doesn't fit into sort of my world view, or sort of seeing sort of how some white people in this world live. And then I was in boarding school for a few years, and that was the happiest I've been, because it was a very religious boarding school, very, very religious, very strict. I also had very clear-cut roles. I suddenly had meaning and purpose. There was God in my life, even though I didn't believe in God, really. But there was just there was hierarchy, there was sort of purpose. I was very popular because for the first time, it was like a mixture of white and black South African kids without their parents. We were all just kept in this boarding school, not allowed to leave. And so we had to figure things out for ourselves without sort of apartheid South Africa. And so because I looked black, but I spoke white, and I spoke Afrikaans or Dutch sort of white language, I sort of communicated between the two sides. And so I was very popular for once. And that was great. And then I was just pulled out of boarding school, had to move here to live with another guardian, a very racist former white South African man who was like, he was about 70 when I moved here. And so that was a huge clash of identities.
This is
and I did not.
Okay.
I hated.
This makes me mad. So you overcame a shit ton of stuff just for this jackass to categorize you as a 2. Like, fuck that.
Living not just with him, but in the UK, because that was sort of my experience of England initially. And so I think because of all of that, just a lot of bubbles, I think. And so I haven't really felt
at home anywhere.
Anything, I guess. Yeah.
I'm curious. Okay, one quick question. Did you graduate college, then you have your bachelor's?
Yes.
In
bachelor's in BA, just in human, social, and political sciences.
Perfect. Okay, so you have like at least that step into more than I do, versus I just like dropped out of college right away. I was like, I'm gonna go work. I'm just like not very inclined to school. I dream about it sometimes. I'm like, should I go back to class? And I'm like, no, because if I get a degree in anything, then everyone's gonna hold me to that degree, versus like me just being a person, which is my brand, because I like that.
Yeah, I can just make bullshit up and just sell it to a bunch of impressionable people with low self-esteem. If I have a degree, then other professionals can hold me to account. If I'm just a dipshit grifter, I can do whatever I want. It's brilliant. Yeah, good job, Brittany.
That I don't think you need school to read a book.
One
like I don't think you need school.
No,
we don't need school to learn how to read, but you need to. It's right here. Like read a book. Okay, but I'm curious because I have this idea called like a gray child, which I should have given it a different name because people think it means like gray asexuality or something. But no, I think there are children who are born into bubbles, like we all are, and we all live in bubbles, even me, and they kind of don't fit in, and the whole time they're there, they're like, but why are we doing this? No reason? Okay. And they go through the motions, but they don't really feel it or embody it. Like I was the most perfect Catholic kid, bro. I loved religion. I loved my bubble. Even though I was in conflict with it constantly around my sexuality, I was really like, I was in conflict because I really believed in it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to hell. Oh my God, I'm a bad person. Like all of this stuff. But the great children in my life they grew up in the same environment I did, but like in particular, the one I'm thinking of, they didn't really get it. They didn't really understand what we were doing. And I kept trying to explain to them, like, this is what we're doing. We're going to church. But they were like, I don't get it. And now, though they have like preferences or ideas, or they're more left or maybe more this way, they have those things. They're still very much not a part of a real bubble. Does that relate to you at all?
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think I've sort of left like a few footprints in certain bubbles, and so I still have sort of something there. But whether it's a sense of sort of being at home or finding, I guess, as you say, joy in those bubbles,
Yeah.
I don't. And so that's,
I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it.
it's difficult because at the same time I want to sort of really immerse myself in sort of a bubble and sort of have that sort of autonomy and choice of being like, okay, this is my bubble, these are my people, these are my rituals, my symbols, whatever. But I have found that when I do try to do that, it's never good enough, especially for the people in those bubbles. So, you know, when I go into sort of my white people bubble, my white South African people bubble, it's not good enough because I look the way I look. And so it's just, you know, there was a point when I was going to basically not be readopted, but sort of legally like looked after by this one white woman, and we were all set. But then she had a daughter, a white daughter, and her white daughter was not on board. And so she chose her daughter over me, understandably, from her perspective. But in my mind at the time, it was very traumatic because I absolutely loved her and adored her. And it didn't make sense to me when she said, you know, I love you. And, you know, even I would say, I love you, and I think that you're smarter than my own biological daughter, and you are basically like my daughter. Like, we did everything together, and it was that sort of thing. It was like, okay, I'm not good enough. And then when it comes to, say, Black people bubbles, or like, I guess, left tube bubbles, especially recently, I was in a bit of a controversy with some left tubers.
I saw some of the videos.
Yes. And that really just hit home for me that, you know, as I am, I'm not accepted or not good enough to be in that bubble by those people according to their criteria, their symbols, their rituals, their way of seeing reality and the world. And so that puts me off wanting to be a part of a bubble, even though I really like want to. I wish I could. I really do. But you know, I always say to myself, or I've been saying to myself for a few years, you know, I wish I was a 2. Like, I really do. Like, I wish I was, like, I would say that mostly I am a 2, but I don't think I'm sort of like a 2 in the way that Fresh and Fit are a 2.
Yeah.
What?
Like, they sort of like, you know, they know what they think. They've got their idea of women and men.
And there's absolutely no changing it. There's like absolutely no room for anything different. Yeah.
Exactly. They have their studio with the girls who look like Instagram models who come, they sit.
These people have no self-respect. It's absolutely insane. Why would you abase yourself to this? Why would you not, like, go out of your way to just ridicule this person to the dirt for... Why are all the 2s Black people? What the fuck is wrong with Brittany?
Reinforce everything, like their whole world. It's all mapped out. You know?
It's beautiful. It's the way they do it.
Exactly.
They reinforce the bubble consistently. Well, So I think great children are kind of like 3s. So 3s are like glorified 2s, but at the same time, if you don't have a bubble, you really are kind of like this nomad, more than a loner.
Yeah.
I like nomad more than
no,
loner
it's
because
Brittany.
I find
She
that
found us.
they tend to bubble hop, the 3s, like the kid 3s, the great children 3s, where I feel like they're not aware of it, but they're questioning enough. And so it is interesting. So they try it. They like bubble hop. They like try to immerse. And then it's just like, I just want to go home and be by myself. or I want to be with anybody else but this, because it's hard to have. It almost feels like if you're not attuned to the bubble, it feels like gaslighting constantly. Like you're not good enough. You almost are, and even if you want to be, like, I remember when I was in leftist circles, I was so excited because I was like, I found my people. And I was like stoked. And then I would hang out with them one-on-one, and they would do things in private that I was like, oh, like one time I wanted to be with like multiple women. And all these women, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with alcoholism on the left, but it's insane. And like all of them were like, I can't be with you like sober. We have to be like drunk or high or something. And I was like, okay, either I'm ugly, and so you need to be intoxicated to have sex with me or do BDSM, or you are so lost in the sauce that you can't even remember why you were preaching consent on your YouTube channels. Because this is about consent. How can you ask me to flog you while you're drunk and then still talk about, like, I can't do that? You know how much damage could be done with alcohol in your system alone? So again, I think what happens is that people have values that they want to be a part of, but can't quite fit it into their real life, which I consider those people, the people who like see the values and try to live up to them, versus turning it around and saying, we create values for ourselves to lift ourselves up, to remember why we want to be consistent when shit gets hard. So I think my dilemma is that if you aren't born into a bubble that you really, really love, you might have a harder time later in life sort of establishing like your own values. Like think about how hard that is from scratch. At least I can look back and like cling to the bubble's values and be like, oh, I remember why I liked this bubble or this one or this one. So how do you feel about the idea that now, if you haven't done it already, you will have to create your own bubble that's just for you and whoever you invite into it?
It's exciting, but also very, very frightening.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of risk. And I definitely find myself very susceptible to things such as, for instance, if I were to make my own bubble and it was to be sort of a very public affair, like on YouTube, say, like my YouTube
versus,
channel,
and I just want to clarify because my audience is probably going to ask, versus making a bubble for ourselves. Like I have a bubble that I made for Brittany, where Brittany lives 24/7. And then I have bubbles that I curated, like my internet bubble, to have a space I can be myself in public. So we're going to talk about, you're mentioning the second one, right? The idea of making a bubble that involves other people. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes. I feel that, at least now, at this point in my life, I'm still not at a point where I can sort of distinguish between the two, where I sort of...
What do you think she would rate you Sunday? Why don't we ask? I'm a little curious. Why don't we just go on Twitter and ask? At Brittany... Who the hell is Brittany Paulette? At Brittany Simons. Or what is she called on... What's she called? Hang on. We'll just search Brittany Simons and somebody will bring her, I'm sure. No, it's Brittany Simon, not Simons. Why do I keep calling her Brittany Simons? Kidology calls her Brittany Simone. I call her Brittany Simons. Whatever. No, other people are calling her Simons too. Well, never mind. Nope, that's a different Simons. Is she on Twitter? She must be. She must be. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it's the Bert Simon. There we go. Hey, chat wants... Okay, no. Hey, what's my level? Well, let's see.
have my own bubble of just me, and I know what that is, what I want that to be, and then my YouTube bubble that is myself.
Yeah.
Which dominates. It sort of has like absorbed any possibility of this. And I think I am going to have to get to a point where I sort of distinguish the two and find myself. And I think that is something that I've sort of made, I guess, I'm not really like about resolutions, but I sort of have made that sort of a mission of this year to start really trying to do things and find myself, find my people beyond YouTube, go traveling, see what's out there, see other people that are out there. It not being about content, not being about subscribers, about AdSense, all of that being about me
Yeah.
and other people involved in that. And it's daunting, but I am looking forward to it as well. So, yes, I think in answer to your question, that is exciting, but I don't know if I am yet at the point where I'm willing to give up on at least the ideal that I see of being, say, a 2.
Oh my god, this is so boring. Wait, do the bubbles have different levels? So Jelma, so the idea is you... Let me see if I can remember this. The levels are a way for you to pick your bubble. So in principle, yes, because your bubble is typically constituted of fellow 2s, fellow 3s, fellow 4s, fellow 5s. Brittany is, of course, a 5, because why wouldn't she be?
Because it looks great. It really does.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it gives them so much meaning. And especially on YouTube, it gives you...
Sunday, are you a bubble? No, I'm a rhizome, so I'm like a yam or something.
followers. It gives you money. It gives you like all these things that I think, wow, you know, I want that. You know, I would like lots of followers, say, or I'd like, you know, to not worry about rent, and it would be great. But that's just an ideal. It's still an ideal, which I still sort of am persuaded by somewhat. But I think in time, I will move on from that and be like, you know what? There's more important things, like sort of curating my own bubble for me and that sort of thing.
This is kind of exciting for me because it's nice to hear somebody be like aware of the fact that they're still trying, and I don't even blame you because literally, hold on.
Because you're just a 2 after all.
The number one comment I get from my 4s is like a 4 will come to me and they'll be like, so which bubble do I end up in? I was like, which one do you feel gravitating, like you're gravitating towards? They're like, none of them. I was like, yeah, that kind of checks out.
Okay, first of all,
so like that's kind of the point, right? Is that none of them are ever as.
Okay, so we've asked Brittany Simons what level we are. Let's take a poll. What do you think I'm going to be? What level will Brittany say? Will Brittany assign to President Sunday? We're going to refer to ourselves. Oh, I can't fit it. Yes, I can. We're going to refer to ourselves in the third person like a real 5. 1. No. 2. We're not a 1. 3, 4, 5. I mean, I was certain Brittany was going to assign a 1 to Kidology, or was going to try to encourage her that, or not a 1 to a 5 to Kidology, or 4 at least, a 4 or a 3. You know, something that keeps her under her thumb, but still gives her some dignity. But she doesn't even argue that at all. No, Kidology is just a 2. Kidology is just a 2, apparently. I don't think Kidology is a 2. I think Kidology. Why the fuck am I even giving credence to this? I think Kidology has every potential to be an original and positive contributor to human knowledge if she gave up the grift and did something useful with her life.
Fulfilling, because they're not going to give you everything you need. They're not going to see you the same way. Like I really struggle in my own even like personal relationships where people in my life, like my brother or my mom or my dad, will say things like, well, you've become much more like conservative as you aged. And I was like,
Jelma Barron says, I love how for Brittany it's functionally impossible to be selectively rational or have unconscious habits. She is a Gothic love incarnate. Also, you're a 2. Fuck you.
Oh.
I'm going to be a 3 at least.
Yeah,
I need to be a worthy
everyone
opponent.
thinks that. Even my like leftist friends are like, you're so conservative now. And in my head, I'm just rebellious in like a different way, or more progressive in a different way.
No.
Like I'm not very good with systems.
No, you're actually entirely the opposite. You are servile to anybody who throws you a bone. That's why all of a sudden you're worshiping at the feet of a fucking professional StarCraft player.
In the past, I'm not educated enough to really understand like systems, but I can understand like individual relationships, and I find that none of the bubbles ever give me the satisfaction in how they observe me nor other people in a way that feels authentically open and honest. It always feels corrupted by some bias. And so I can't handle it very well. And I know we all have bias, and I know stereotypes are real. But at the same time, I really need to try to see somebody for like what they're doing and why they're doing it. Like I cover Sneeko a lot, or like Logan Paul, and everyone's like, they're bad people. And I was like, okay. So for Britney, when I think bad, I'm thinking like fucking kids, fucking your mom, like things that are rape, like things that are like murder, like things that are like Madoff stealing billions of millions of dollars from people in their retirements.
Hey, that's not very progressive. I guarantee you Destiny's fucked people's moms before.
Thinking like people who destroy your life.
Yeah.
I'm not really thinking anymore about people who like, I don't know, like stupidly wear a Confederate flag they don't even understand. I went into my cousin's house. We're Middle Eastern, we're Iraqi. And then his mom is white. And I walked into his house and he had a big Confederate flag in his room. And I was like, what is that? What does that mean? Then like, he was just like, he's like, because it's for my white side. I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Your white side technically likes a Confederate flag. But like, just like the irony of it was so beautiful to me. I was like, I fuck with this. And like, even when people tell me like, they're always arguing on the internet, like whether or not I'm white or not, because I am white, but I'm not white, but I am white, but I'm not white. And so it's like very confusing. And I have a sibling who literally drives himself crazy wishing he was white every day. So you have to understand, like, I grew up with a brother who has like a little like issue around him not being white. He's like, that's all I want, Brittany. White people give everything to everybody. If I could just be white. And I'm like, are we not the same color? And then I'm like realizing like it's not the color. It's the association.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
And that's what people are judging you on. They don't care if you're the same color as them. They want to know your bloodline is theirs. They want to know you understand what the Confederate flag means. Versus my parents, I'm going to be real, I don't think I ever knew what a Confederate flag really was until the like SJWs went ham on them. Because in my bubble, like my parents would never need to know what that is. I didn't learn it in school because I was homeschooled till I went to public school. So like there would be no reason for me to know what a Confederate flag is.
Yeah.
But I can understand how people want to make these assumptions that like, it's too much, girl. It's just too much blindness for me to think that these are the answers. So what I'm doing is like, I don't really curate the bubble I live in personally. That's my own personal domain. Nobody's in it but my partner, because he's the only person I've ever met my whole life that genuinely would fit into it. Everyone else, like there's always a disconnect. There's always looking at people like, can I trust you?
Yes.
Because you're not seeing me and I'm not seeing you, and I don't know what that means. And so I think I end up becoming very nomadic. All my besties are nomadic. You seem nomadic. Like everyone I know who goes on an introspection journey, I feel turns into a nomad, because they realize like, how can I say where home is when home is something I've either curated within myself, which means I can travel with it, or now I've put down roots in a bubble, curating an existence in a bubble where now I'm a part of that community, ? But I'm not. Like I live in a conservative bubble right now. It's like gay flags are everywhere, but Let's Go Brandon flags are everywhere too. So it's very like anti-Biden, but okay with gays, but not trans.
Yeah.
And it's very chill, low tax. Everyone's like minds their own business. But I also know none of my neighbors know me, and all of them are assuming who I am 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else is. And that has always been the issue. So when you're dealing with the issue of you, like people assuming who you are, and then you wondering like, well, am I that person? Do I belong in this bubble? It's very confusing. And then it feels like a betrayal when you leave. Like I had one of my leftist friends like ghost me after years of friendship. And I was like shook. Because I was like, you're a leftist. You know, like first I have borderline, which is an abandonment mental health problem.
Oh my god.
So like I would have really appreciated like a heads up instead of a ghosting.
Yeah.
Okay. You having mental illness, you being somewhere on your conception of a progressive stack, does not give you special rights with respect to people just because they're leftists and advocate for that. This is the stupidest thing I have seen people like this sort of on board recently. This idea that, well, because we advocate in favor of not treating people with mental variants of size, the correct term, something like that, as being like inferior or pathologizing them, or like providing services to allow them to engage positively with their communities, etc., etc., or because they advocate in favor of affirmative action or some kind of like historical correction with respect to a history of racist policies and state activities or whatever, that therefore, because you yourself, you individually, happen to be non-white, or you happen to be disabled, etc., or you happen to be gay or whatever, that therefore you must be treated as royalty. That is not the case. And I really resent people, honestly, like Bernie Sanders, for making it appear that that's the case. When those two women appeared at his rally and demanded the microphone and he just gave it over to them, he looked weak. He shouldn't have done so. He probably should have had somebody, interfacing with different communities in a more positive way, so that was not an eventuality. But that should have never been a thing that he did. And that's across the board. We aren't that stupid. Most of them aren't that stupid unless they're engaged in some kind of cynical game and they've made a very, very serious miscalculation.
Like, that would have been
Yes.
great. But I also understand, like, she's just, like, mentally ill. Because, like, no sane person just ghosts a friend of 6 years or whatever because they're having a bad time.
Well,
So they must be really having a bad time.
well, they might if you were an extremely toxic and manipulative egomaniac, which I have a strong suspicion you are.
But I also know one of the justifications in her head, because she had brought it up to me a couple of years before she did this,
You
was
know her head now.
I'm afraid you're becoming like a white supremacist.
Right.
And I was like, yep. That sounds kind of crazy. So what are we dealing with here? And again, I think what happens is, like, people curate these bubbles around
Lady, every single person that I am aware of, and I'm now aware of at the very least 1, 2, 3, 4, that you've given as an example of a 2, one stage above a virus that only doesn't kill themselves because they lack the self-awareness to do so, has been black. That's a little strange, I gotta say, and I don't know you very well. That looks really weird. These are strange decisions you have made. And it's not just incidental, right? Because it's not just like, oh, well, you're only engaging with like, YouTubers who are engaging in the drama sphere. They're not particularly intellectual. They don't really, they're whatever arbitrary assignation you're giving to it. You included Malcolm X in that. This was a massively influential, reflective, and interesting human being who had a serious and abiding impact on the world. You rated him a 2. What have you done?
someone else's values and then decide to morph themselves around those values instead, again, forming our values out of ourselves. And so, like, if your values aren't going to match up with a bubble, how are you going to end up in a bubble, girl?
This room
Exactly.
that we are in right now, in the lower corner that you can see, this is a representation of the internal life of Brittany Simons. This is what it is like to be her, but she doesn't feel it. She doesn't know this, but this is what it is. This is the ontic reality. A colon with the incidental properties of a human mind.
So I want people to really think about, why do you hold this value? Is it serving your joy? Because I don't think I hold a value of accusing, like, Middle Eastern people of being white supremacists.
Exactly.
I don't think that's a part of my
Exactly.
like my makeup. I don't think I could do that. But I understand why they think.
Let's see. Brittany Simons. First of all, you are extremely white presenting. Nobody would assume you're Middle Eastern. So if you are technically, that's great. Whatever. I don't care. But let's see. Like, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. See, here's the thing, right? You can engage in a white supremacist mode of analysis despite your background, and you can even do so as a black person. There is no contradiction there. White supremacy is not you happen to be white and you think that you're superior to non-white people. It can be that you are yourself non-white either by a technicality or in presentation, and you buy into a frame or a point or a worldview that tacitly presumes superior status to whiteness. That's a possibility. I'm just curious where she is from, though. Because she looks like she looks whiter than me, honestly. Is she like Lebanese or what? It doesn't matter, I'm just curious. Okay, so she's from Iraq apparently. Part of a specific Christian minority. Wait, is she Jewish? Is that she's a white Syriac Christian or okay, that's somebody speculating. No, she isn't Jewish. Okay, nobody knows. That's interesting. So I guess just nobody knows where she's from? Or what her background is? Like, here's the thing. I don't know if she's Jewish or not, but if she's saying she's non-white because she's Jewish, that is very much buying into a white supremacist worldview. First of all, the category white is not coherent scientifically. So if you're negatively affirming it by saying that you are not categorically that, in being just to be consistent with how white nationalists are characterizing Jews, that's strange. But I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't look like there's any definitive answer here. Okay, here we go. Hang on. Maybe this is it. I don't know. Nobody seems to know where she's from. Doesn't matter. But anyways.
I think it's possible. Because like 1 in a billion Middle Eastern people might be like,
she's a Jewish Christian? She told Mr. Girl she was Jewish? Okay, but if you're Jewish and you're white passing, well, let's think this through for a second. Whose presumptions are you onboarding to insist that you're not white still? I mean, like maybe you think like you're gaming the progressive stack or whatever because you're also potentially bullshitting your engagement with leftists, and you think that they actually do treat anybody who's technically quote unquote non-white as royalty, but or ought to be consistent. Oh, this is stupid. She's a Syrian. What? Whatever. Anyways, I don't want to dwell on this anymore.
Like, yay. But like, again, being
stupid.
pro-Trump doesn't mean white supremacist. But I understand.
Exactly.
But they're just stuck on that script. So when you look at the world, you live in scripts, you see the scripts. I want to
Okay, well, here's the script you're actually playing out. You being pro-Trump does not mean that you personally psychologically must necessarily have onboarded white supremacist propositions. However, you are absolutely endorsing a candidate and a campaign that is banking on appealing to white supremacists to succeed.
talk to you, if it's okay, if you don't have any comments or questions.
No.
I want to
Perfect.
use this to segue into incel conversations.
Oh, okay.
Because I see it literally the same way. where like
Okay.
incels are having this very specific experience, and then they're assuming like
shoot.
the world now operates this way, or at least they'll say like in the West.
Yes.
But like
Yes.
immigration to Europe's pretty easy, bitches. Is Europe the West to them? Does that count?
Is
Yeah, yeah, I
Europe
think
What do
so,
they?
the
Western
West
So
to
wait,
Europe.
them?
well, what do they want then? Who do they want? What culture do they want if the West is bad? The Middle East?
What are we talking
I
about?
think they want what the West nostalgically was. I think they sort of have hope that there's sort of like a semblance of what the West was, that we can get to that point if we just get rid of feminism.
Yeah, but okay,
Yeah.
so okay, that's
I think that's
Oh,
just an
incels,
ideal, though.
incels,
That
right,
isn't
okay.
a reality at all.
Sorry,
It's completely
had a-
fabricated,
Had a one moment there for a second.
nostalgic idea of what it was to be a man and a woman.
nostalgia is so blinding though. It's like as a kid you're like, man, I remember the 90s being great, but the 90s also had like a lot of really shit things, right?
Oh, exactly. Oh, yes, yes. Anti-nostalgia is far more. That's what we should be going for, I think, as sort of like cultural references more than anything.
Why do you think you have embraced the incel bubble? Why are you kind to them?
I think I see. I wouldn't say a lot of myself, but I see something quite important in myself in a lot of them, which is, I think, feeling ostracized by, I think, the ideal of what you want to be, or sort of, I guess, sort of being the ideal man who gets lots of girls and therefore feels like your masculinity has been reinforced and that you've found your meaning. You've sort of found your like Nietzschean Ubermensch, your Superman. And I think sometimes you feel like you've sort of tried a lot of different things in order to get to that point, but everybody just rejects you, and that's just your life story of being rejected by people. In my case, sort of feeling rejected by white people, rejected by black people, and
Hey,
then
hang on,
when I
let's see if
started,
let's see if Britney's responded to us. Nope, no answer yet.
exploring my sexuality.
Okay. Everybody, tweet at Brittany Simons, the Bert Simons on Twitter, and ask them what my level is. I need to know.
Rejected by women, rejected by men, always being dumped. I think I really empathized with that sense of rejection and the rage that just instills in you, especially when people are not willing to firstly recognize that rage, but also they just sort of brush off your rejection as just being, oh, like it's whatever, like who cares, because they're not being rejected, or at least you see them as not being rejected, that they don't have their problems, that it's a lot easier for them. And I think I've definitely, like, at least in my life, not so much now, but I would say for the majority of my life, I sort of saw it as everybody else has it easier than me. Everybody else's life is better. They have families who love them. They have, they know their brother. They sort of know where they fit in the world. They have funding to do a master's and a PhD. They have privilege, and I don't. And I was fuming and really, really angry. And that rage, just for me at least, because I never had really an outlet for my anger in the way that I think incels now, at least some of them have the forums where they can let it out. And so I'm not for deplatforming. I think it's important to be able to just let it out, especially when you feel that there's
Hey, well, remember, you're a 2. Stop trying to do social analysis, Kidology.
nowhere where you can.
Yes.
And I didn't have that. And because I was always very much a good Christian girl who never expressed her feelings, never had an identity, always tried to make everybody else feel good about me being sort of the elephant in the room, and fearing that I would just be passed on if I was too much of an issue for one family. I didn't have that outlet, and so it just turned into this internal self-hate. I just became very suicidal. Sorry, I don't want to get you demonetized.
No, I talk about killing myself all the time.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And at uni, it was just really bad. It was terrible, and just went on antipsychotic medication, antidepressants, and so it was just. I felt I sort of didn't have control over my world, and I really relate to incels in that sense of not having control over a world, which is telling you that you do have control, and that, you know, if you are getting rejected, it's your fault, or if you are unattractive, that's your fault or your problem, or, you know, it is what it is. And I think that rage, that anger, I can really resonate with, and I get it.
Yeah.
And so it isn't something that when an incel calls me like a shibun, that I sort of think, oh my gosh, this racist individual is da 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 da. It's sort of,
I haven't heard that one before.
I get it. You're angry. You're very angry. And I've been there. And, you know, at times I still am there. I still do get angry.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So.
It's funny, I'll call my partner or I'll call a friend. I'm like, hey, I just need to be a fucking venting too right now that complains about things that absolutely do not matter. But they really upset me emotionally, and I'm feeling like I don't want to like yell at the internet. And sometimes I will go off on the internet, and I feel sort of bad after. Like, I went after Pearl, and I was so mean to that bitch. I should have been nicer to her, but at the same time, she called women whales, and I was like, girl, if you're gonna go for someone's looks, I'm gonna go for your looks right now, bitch. Because like,
oh yes, I saw that.
Kidology talking about the rage others' unfair and unmerited privileges makes her feel is about the only legit thing in this conversation, wasted on Brittany, yeah. That's the frustrating thing, is that, like, she's not stupid. She could clearly be... She could do more. Yeah, minus the insult comparison.
I'm sorry, and I felt really bad, but also, like, sign up for my OnlyFans because that fucking worked, and people...
To be fair, that's Pearl's brand.
It is
You
her
spoke to her
brand!
in her language. You were speaking her language.
Bro!
And so I feel like... I don't feel that it's as bad. It would be very different if you were saying that to somebody who was not Pearl, say.
Right?
I think you were speaking in her language.
That's how I saw it.
You were sort of like going onto her turf and being like, right.
That's how I saw
Let's
it.
fight.
Because she said,
So, yeah.
literally, she's like, women are babies. They can't handle criticism. They can't even... They're whales. They're just all ugly whales. And I was like, oh, yeah. Let's go, girl. Let's go. Let's fight it out, girl.
Yes.
But then I did, and she called me a weirdo, which is a fact. So... True. But then her audience did the most beautiful human thing in the whole world, and they just went after how ugly I was. So like, how could this ugly woman go after Pearl? I was like, how could ugly Pearl go after other women? We're all ugly.
Yeah.
Like, if you're average, you're ugly.
Exactly.
Unless you're a 10, you're hot. What are you all gonna insult each other over? Your abs aren't a 6. I'm an 8. You're a 6-pack. Like, what are you gonna insult each other over?
Exactly.
But like, when you're average, when you've got things that people don't like and they call you for it, when the amount of people who think I look like a man, this is my place. I have the right as an ugly person to criticize another ugly person. And by ugly, I mean average. So again, if we're going to say, like, I think all humans are animals and we all look as good as we're going to look for lions and bears and tigers. Like, I just don't think we're that different. But if we're going to be hypercritical about symmetry and how we look, none of us are going to pass that vibe check. Like, none of us, except the extremely attractive people, which is why they are rare. And the rest of us are just doing the best with what we have, which, like, you know, do your hair nice and you'll look okay. That's always my theory.
Exactly.
But it was that was like my favorite bubble to hop into, because I was like, oh my God. And they can't even, like, I hope she talks to me. I think she maybe won't, but I think she probably couldn't, because again, like, I have no problem with who she is. I don't think she's a bad person. I think she's doing the best she can within her bubble. So like, if you go to Logan Paul or Sneeko or Pearl and you told them, like, if Sneeko came to me and said, Brittany, and he didn't, we hadn't talked since December, I think. If he reached out to me and said, Brittany, what do you think I should really do? I'd be like, give up all this money, give up Andrew Tate, none of this matters. Like, go meditate in the woods for 6 months. Sneeko wouldn't be a millionaire now if he took my advice. My advice is
Exactly.
better. My advice is better for introspection and inner peace.
No,
That
it's
has
not.
nothing to do with dominating his bubble.
Exactly.
And so, of course, he's smart enough to, like, ignore me and hop back into a bubble and choose this one and then die hard in it. Because when he gets out of it, maybe he'll be, like, 30. He'll be not only rich, but he'll be able to zen out in the mountains on his own budget.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
So it's so
exactly.
much more reasonable than anything I could have done in my youth. But that's what I mean. Even with Pearl, I hope she one day realizes, like, you can call people ugly all you want, but you gotta make sure
You notice how, like, she's really trying to sell herself as she's found a way to be introspective and to understand herself in her context as a human being, sort of in a realistic and grounded way. But she does no wrong. She does wrong by being too ambitious or by not being generous enough to herself. or by hoping too much for other people. Those are Britney's flaws. She never just does something that's profoundly arrogant and unethical, which she is constantly.
you start with yourself, girl. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Like, you can't go around talking about
Stop
people's
saying
looks,
exactly.
okay?
You don't know what you're saying.
Like, you just got to be aware of it. It's not very nice in general, and we all are born into bodies we don't always love. And so we can't choose it. And so, like, as somebody who's never had plastic surgery, but definitely came from a culture where when you turn 18, you got a nose job. That was everyone's gift. All my cousins, all my aunties and uncles, that's like a tradition. It's like, hey, do you want to get your bump fixed? Do you want to give yourself that weird, like, thing? But, it's not. I already know with my look, it's better to embrace it than to try to change it.
Yeah.
Plus, I really am
She
scared of
looks
plastic surgery.
fine. I don't know why she
It makes me
thinks she
angry.
would
What
need
if you come out
plastic surgery.
uglier?
Exactly. Yes. Oh gosh. You have a little Kim moment. Yes. Oh,
That
dear.
would be my luck.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
would be my luck. I would just come out less pretty. Plus, now I can say, like, look, when I hear people say, like, oh, you look like a man, or, like, you are not pretty for a woman, all I'm hearing is that, like, yeah, dude, like, I'm, like, a genetic 100% Middle Eastern woman. And if you don't vibe with Middle Eastern women, I'm totally okay with that.
What?
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know what to do about it. This is just how I look. Like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? What am I supposed to do? But I can understand when you're in those bubbles why you'd play to it. I don't know if you know this about me, but
You look like Irish. Like, I could be related to you. I'm not denying that you're Middle Eastern or whatever. I don't know what you are, but, like, that's so weird. That's such a weird response. Introspective equals constantly going on in a dull way by trivial appearance-based and socio-relational framing. Yeah, basically. She's Iraqi? Okay. Great. Good for her. I don't care, but I don't get it.
I don't know when. There was one point in my career where I had to make a decision. Do I want to talk about philosophy or do I want to be like a full-on OnlyFans girl?
Oh yeah, it's like, Jalmy, you're absolutely right. As a total side note, there are so many gorgeous women with prominent noses. It's a point of pride for many. Crooked noses can look really good on certain faces. Aesthetics is largely a matter of taste and conditioning. It is not objective at all. I think they have to do a ritualistic put down of their own appearance to satisfy their own fans, maybe.
Like full-on
I don't know what
cosplay,
this is.
full-on,
This is just
get your boobs
bizarre.
done, maybe even shave down my nose. Like, I was thinking money. Because the only reason you become like a cosplay OnlyFans girl is money. That is a business for money. Versus I think my work,
Also, she's saying she looks like a man. Kidology is for some reason trying to insist that she's not transphobic. I'm perplexed by all of this. This is just... This is not worth thinking about. Okay, let's see here. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Between sex work... Oh, no. Posing as a nihilist? Does Kidology ever see a future? Okay, hang on. What's this? Does Kidology ever see a future where she has no obligation to post on YouTube? Jordan Peterson plus storytelling, the value of religion and history. Oh, God. Dating politically. Oh, we have to go through it. There's so much bad stuff. But it's so long. We're almost an hour in. It's 3 hours and 13 minutes long. We'll go as far as we can. I'm gonna be right back. Nobody move. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Recently, I read a New Yorker interview
allows me to be poor. I have an excuse.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I'm allowed to be poor in this career, but in OnlyFans, like, you better do that to win, girl. You better put your body out there to win. So one of the reasons I'm more sex positive than focused on my OnlyFans is just because, like, I'm not using it just to make, like, it's a side gig. It's not the gig.
Yes.
If it was the gig, I had best be making 6 figures a year. Because, like, what else would there be no excuse? Not with all these men on the internet claiming that they're willing to give me tons of money. Like, I'd be a fool not to take it. But now I can't take it because I chose philosophy.
Ugh.
So if I take their money
No, you didn't.
as a sex worker,
No, you
like
didn't.
it's a kind I'm not, then I'm putting myself in a bubble that I don't really belong to.
No.
And thus selling them a product that isn't
You-
ever going to be as good as they want from a
You
person
chose the most abject and obvious type of sophistry that exists. You are the enemy of philosophers, my friend.
who really is dedicated to sex work.
Philosophers hate you.
Yeah.
So I pride myself in being
they're
good at either
justified
sex
in it.
work or my job. But I've put 100% of myself into YouTube to try to make it the best. Because this is the bubble I like.
Yeah.
Why did you choose the YouTube bubble?
Oh, gosh. I could do the typical answer of the YouTube bubble chose me. No. Huh. Why did I choose the YouTube bubble?
Does she ever think about anything? Like
I think it was a very good mix of things that
Like-
I like. It was a mix of,
like,
especially
basic questions. Hey, Kidology. What's this thing that you're spending 24 hours a day doing for lots of money, spreading really, really badly thought out ideas on the internet for? What are you doing it for? It's unbelievable.
this idea or very idealistic image of academia, which I had when I went in as sort of a dewy-eyed little undergraduate. I really thought that going to university would solve all my problems. Like, finally, I found like a place that accepted me. I got accepted into Cambridge. Like, this was now my bubble. And it was going to be all about just learning and just the experience. It was an end in itself rather than, which university is now, it's a business. It's a means to an end of getting a good job.
Yep.
And I lived in this fantasy that I was there to be an intellectual. And then when the end came and I suddenly didn't have anything, I hadn't gone to any of the job fairs or anything, I suddenly realized, oh, I actually have nothing. Like, I've got this degree, I've got all this knowledge, I've got all these books, but I don't actually have anything in this world that we live in today.
Yeah.
And I think YouTube for me was a way for me to actually, weirdly enough, use my degree, all my books, everything I'd learnt, this idea of sort of writing essays and then learning new skills, which is something that I do like to do, like learning how to edit and things like that. That really gave me a little bit of hope in at least sort of public intellectualism, I guess, sort of like being the sort of public intellectual, like, you know, in France in the 60s, that sort of thing. And I think that ideal I've been able to fit into a bit more on YouTube, because it at least creates a convincing enough illusion that you are sort of doing something with your video essays, that you're putting these ideas out into the world, that they're changing people's lives,
This is
that you're
embarrassing.
doing
Why would you admit this?
at least something political, something meaningful. That illusion is very convincing, I think, for a lot of people. I've sort of gotten over that now, and I sort of see this as a job, and I see it as a fascinating job, because I can do what I want. I can make videos about what I want. But in terms of seeing my videos as sort of this transformative, like, sort of thing that's contributing something to the masses, I've sort of left that in the dust a bit. I don't think the YouTube space that I'm in has sort of reckoned with that. I think there's still, I'd say, a lot of sort of sanctimony, a lot of sort of we're doing sort of the Lord's work for modern people. But yes, I think it's a very interesting space, and I think because of that, I don't want to leave, like at least not for the foreseeable future,
Yeah, me
because
too,
it's
same.
just fascinating. There's so many interesting people. I mean, I cannot imagine. I reflect on sort of the people I've spoken to, the videos I've made, like all of this, like even speaking to you. I mean, this would have never, ever even like, I would
Yeah.
have never even contemplated it when I was watching your video about
God
like why
forbid.
Moses is posing as as a 5. So,
Bro.
or 4. You know,
We're all water, bro. We're all water.
I know, and it's just anything can happen. Like really, anything
Yeah.
can happen in this bubble, and
Yeah.
it's just no day is ever the same. No video is ever the same.
Hey, Brittany, I don't
But
know.
it is.
Look,
I'm gonna challenge. I want you to go a little deeper though, because it is.
look,
this-
I might not be an autodidact who just learned everything I did from the school of life, but I'm pretty sure water doesn't have brains or fingers or any of that stuff.
Same area of YouTube. Like, why didn't you become like a, hey guys, what's up? It's Z. Welcome back to my channel. Like, what? Why didn't you become one of those YouTubers?
Whoa, well, oh, that's really interesting, because you know when I think about what YouTube I watch, like predominantly, I venture into all different communities. Like I would say that the bubble I'm most in is Hater Nation, the Amberlyn Reed, Foodie Beauty, that sort of
Really?
bubble.
Okay,
like,
let's go.
Very petty stuff, you know, all of that. Like,
Yeah.
that is, I love that bubble. That bubble is just, it feeds something in me. Like all these like middle-aged, like Gen X woman, like
Yeah.
just like streaming about I don't know what. It's fascinating. It intrigues me. And you know, I have thought about sort of entering that domain and space, but
All right, guys, I can't listen to these dipshits anymore. This is mind rotting. Let's find something else. Enough. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. Oh god, what's Haas talking about now? Emergency Chinese balloon has attacked America? No. No, I'm good. I'm good. How long's that been going for? Oh, it's just started. Let's see. What else we got here? Fuck it. Let's learn about evolution. I wanna listen to a lecture about ontogeny while I'm playing Dead Space. I think that'll be fun. Mass extinctions, here we go. I like her. This channel's good. And it's only got 646 subscribers, but it's really good. You know what we're gonna do actually, because we don't really need the visuals. Let's make that really tiny. Let's put it up there. Let's put us. No, it's the wrong one. I want this over here. And I'll put this over here. And then we will. Yes. Yes. There we are. Let's bring this a little bit further down like that. There we go. Okay.
Hey folks, welcome back. This is Sarah Sheffield giving a lecture for Geology 3104C at the University of South Florida. We're continuing our lecture series with mass extinctions today, and we'll be talking about both the mass extinctions in the fossil record, how we estimate mass extinctions, and what causes them. Now, mass extinctions are one of those things that people have been fascinated with since we had a slightly better handle on the fossil record. People have really spent a lot of time trying to figure out what in the world happened. So what that gives us is a whole bunch of ridiculous paleo art that I think should always be celebrated. So this is the Cretaceous Tertiary, the KT boundary, now the KPG, Cretaceous Paleogene. with what we presume is a giant asteroid slamming into Earth, and some pterosaurs who are enjoying their last few moments on Earth. So first things, this is the Sapkowski curve. So Raup and Sapkowski, two famous paleontologists, they plotted the number of marine families through time. And what we see is, through these extinction events, we see different faunas showing up. We have the Cambrian fauna, the Paleozoic fauna, and the modern fauna. And these are really dictated by our mass extinctions. So one replaced the other.
Let's make this bigger.
Now, there's a whole lot of bias on this chart, right? First off, we're dealing with families, and we know that families are not a legitimate scientific thing, right? We can't quantify a family very easily. So there's one bias. Two, of course, we're dealing with marine, and this is going to be dealing with what's fossilized. So there are some biases inherent to this chart, so don't forget that. This tells us a lot. It's not bad by any means. It's a great piece of work to look at, but there are some biases inherent to it. So extinction means death of all members of a clade. Now, that can be a little confusing, so let's go through a really quick basic fact. Dinosaurs are not extinct. The reason dinosaurs are not extinct is because birds are members of the Dinosauria clade. Birds are, of course, still alive. If you do not believe me, go walk outside and go look around.
That's a lie. Birds aren't real.
So, we can say the non-avian dinosaurs are extinct. That would be a correct statement. So again, we've talked a little bit about this when we talked about biodiversity and patterns of diversity, but extinction wasn't a topic that has always been accepted. Most folks thought that the world that we saw around them was unchanging. So dinosaurs and things like that really started to revolutionize that idea. So ancient sloths were clearly no longer around. This was noticed by Darwin and, weirdly enough, Thomas Jefferson. And they started to piece together at different times what was going on with ancient sloths. There must have been things alive in the past that are not alive now. Cuvier in 1796, he put together conclusive evidence of mastodon extinction, and part of that evidence, as we talked about during the Patterns of Diversity lecture as well, was based on folks that were being held in slavery in the United States. These men and women found mastodon teeth in South Carolina, on a South Carolina plantation where they were forced to work, and tied it to elephant teeth found in Africa.
We're not even a level 2.
So
We
what
can't
are
get
the
in.
causes of extinction? Well, there's quite a few. One could be genes. Could lead to an inability to adapt and change an environment. Your genes are not going to help you in this particular case. Again, we don't select for good genes in the evolutionary record. We select against bad ones, but not always going to work out. Luck. If you happen to be standing in the area where an asteroid impact is coming, there's not a whole lot of genetics that can save you at that point in time, right? But there's also things like habitat loss, climate change, etc., that can really affect this. And there's two types of extinction. The first is background extinction. That's normal. Background extinction is always occurring. Usually 5 to 15% of species every million years or so is replaced by newly evolved species. And every once in a while, we'll have a mass extinction that is elevated far beyond background extinction. As you can see in the bottom graph here, the background extinction is the noise that's continuously going on. It's a little bit higher sometimes, a little bit lower. And then we have our mass extinctions, which clearly stick out from the background extinction. Now, there's two major hypotheses here, and they have a couple different names. The first is the Red Queen hypothesis. This is one, the Red Queen hypothesis. This was named for Lewis Carroll's book, Alice in Wonderland, based on the quote, "The Red Queen has to run faster and faster in order to keep still where she is." That is exactly what you all are doing. The idea is that there's so much constant competition in the evolutionary record, it continues to drive extinction. So you're really just running faster and faster just to keep still where you are. All right? So we can definitely see that. Here's the Red Queen here. Okay? Typically occurs with less environmental change. Now that's going to lead us to our second idea of extinction, the court jester hypothesis. This is also called the stationary hypothesis, but we'll use the court jester, frankly, because it's more fun, and it goes with the Red Queen. So this is mostly based on environmental control. All right, and we can see here from this graph, the court jester typically occurs with climate change, asteroid impacts, otherwise known as bolides, volcanic activity, things like that, things that will change the climate overall. Both of these will happen on longer lifespans as well, though the court jester will typically be the one that is caused by larger timescales. There's a couple different ways that we can estimate background rates of evolution. The first, the number of species that goes extinct in a given number of time. 2, rates in million species of years. All right, or 3, species survival rates. How long does a typical family or order live? Something like that. So those are the 3 ways that we're going to estimate background rates of evolution. And we'll do a little bit of calculating extinction rates in our lab coming up. So how do we identify a mass extinction? You think it would be easy. You're like, oh, well, when everything died. Well, it's not actually as simple as that, and it can be kind of difficult to pick it out. Again, these are really big pieces of the fossil puzzle, so it's going to take some time to figure this out. So again, the mass extinction stands out as higher than background extinction rates. The extinction has to be global, has to occur within a relatively short time, a couple million years, which means it's likely related to a single cluster or a cluster of related causes. The mass extinction will cover ecosystems, marine and continental, freshwater and saltwater, plants, animals, and other forms of life. So again, it'll affect both land and sea organisms. Animals are going to be more susceptible than land plants, which hopefully makes sense. We'll talk more about why that is a little bit later. And then tropical life often suffers more extinction. So here we have the Karoo Basin in South Africa, which is one of the places that documents beautifully the Permo-Triassic extinction. It has a lot of other amazing fossil finds as well. This shows the reptile to mammal transition beautifully, the fossils here. But it also, the most famous part about it is that it shows the Permo-Triassic extinction. So here's just an example of the Permo-Triassic. Again, this is called the Great Dying because we're very dramatic in paleontology. But you can see that there was a complete extinction across a whole bunch of different groups. So fusuliniid foraminifera, those are completely extinct. Corals, 2 of our 3 major groups of corals went completely extinct. Productive brachiopods, a large group, completely extinct. Spurfrids went a little bit later during the Jurassic. And then we had heavy losses in mollusks and arthropods. The trilobites finally stop existing. And unfortunately, the blastoids, and in fact all blastozoans, a very large phylum within, or a subphylum within Echinodermata, all goes extinct as well. My favorite group. So, extinctions of species typically provide the basis for our geologic timescale. A lot of our periods are based on higher extinction rates that are not background, but they're not mass extinctions, all right? And our eras are based on mass extinctions. For example, the Permo-Triassic bases the change from the Paleozoic to the Mesozoic. The KPG here, or KT, is the change from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic. All right, but all of these are definitely bases for at least the ends of periods. Now, one thing I want to point out here is not all of these cause major changes in ecology. Many do, most do, really, but the End Ordovician and the Triassic-Jurassic actually did not have a massive ecological impact. It really just depends on who survives. Here are some of our minor extinction events. We have a whole lot of them, and again, they're kind of dotting different points in the geologic timescale. This is where we'll base a lot of our periods, a lot of our stages, things like that. Mass extinctions reset the evolutionary playing field. What that means is the rules change. Competition will change drastically. We learned this when we talked a little bit about brachiopods and mollusks already, but at the Permo-Triassic boundary, we see a shift in the dominant seashells of the time, and bivalves, clams, completely take off when brachiopods are no longer the dominant species. When we had the End Ordovician extinction, we lost a lot of biodiversity, and crinoids were able to skyrocket with their diversity as well. So this really changes what we see in the geologic record. Now, one last note here. Background extinctions are very different for different groups. Why do you think that is? Not everything will go extinct at the same rate, even just in normal background extinctions, no mass extinction whatsoever. For example, mammals have a much higher extinction rate than bivalves or foraminifera. A lot of this has to do with availability of resources, where you live. So land animals typically are higher to go extinct than marine animals. Living on land is quite a bit harder, really. Gravity, lack of water sources constantly, things like that. Also, the amount that you reproduce. So mammals typically have a much lower reproductive level than most invertebrates. So there are different things like that that can offset your background extinction rate. So just remember that not everything will go extinct at the same rate. Certain body plans are lost during mass extinction events. So fossil echinoderm diversity went from over 20, really closer to 25 taxa, and you can take a look at this. We have things that look like bass guitars, sideshow bob, soft serve ice cream cones. I have no idea what this looks like. Maybe like a corn on the cob holder, I don't know. But we lose all of that diversity after the Permo-Triassic, and again, mostly the Permo-Triassic extinction. And we're left with these 5 groups here: the sea stars, brittle stars, sea urchins, crinoids, feather stars, and the sea cucumbers. So much, much more limited diversity. And again, just to remind you, we talked about this at the beginning, but it establishes new world orders. After the large event in the early Paleozoic, we replaced the Cambrian fauna, which was like trilobites, echinoderms that were really weird looking, and weird mollusks, and we go to the Paleozoic fauna, which are brachiopods, bryozoans, crinoids, rugose and tablet corals, and cephalopods, and those are replaced during the PT with clams and snails, scleractinian corals, fish, marine reptiles, and marine mammals in the modern. Now, we've talked about this a little bit, but what actually causes mass extinctions? First, the big one, global climate change, cooling and warming. These, many of these causes will kind of overlap with each other. So here we have the late Ordovician, which was a very cold time. There was the Hernantian glaciation. North Gondwana was mostly ice at this point and situated over the poles, which allows ice to form a lot faster. Laurentia, which is where most of North America minus Florida is, was sitting pretty here at the tropics. Late Permian, a lot of our ice has melted. A lot more of our land is underwater. We still have the remnants of Pangea that is starting to break up. Much warmer time. Sea level change. Typically falls are going to be worse. If we have a sea level fall, it'll restrict ocean basins. It's likely because it is getting colder, more ice is forming. We have a loss of marine habitat here. Now remember, there's a bias. If we're losing water, we're typically going to be increasing erosion, which means that the lens that we're looking at through hundreds of millions of years later is biased. There's less rock to look at. Ocean anoxia, so the lack of oxygen, free oxygen in our ocean waters. This happens in many parts of the ocean, and it is worse during times of global warming. There's more acid in the seawater. Volcanism. Poisonous gases are released, and that, of course, feeds into ocean anoxia. Asteroid impact. Obviously going to be pretty bad. Things are on fire, etc. Competition, predation, and disease. All of these can be spread at different rates during different times. Now, the big 5 mass extinctions are caused by a combination of these. And the combo is really different for each of the big 5. So how do we get biodiversity loss? There's a couple different ways that we can measure it. There's mass extinction. Extinction rates are elevated above background. All right. Or we can have mass depletion. The extinction rate is statistically the same as the background, but speciation rates are really reduced. So here we have 3 different examples here. Again, so if we had extremely high extinction above, excuse me, here we have extinction, here we have speciation rates. All right, here we have much higher extinction rates above speciation rates. That would lead to a diversity loss as well. However, if we had no extra speciation at all, and extinction rate stayed the same as background, we would still produce a lack of biodiversity. So both of these can lead to a mass extinction. That's actually what happened in the Devonian biodiversity crisis. It's not technically a mass extinction, it's a mass depletion. We lump it in with the mass extinction, that's totally fine. But the reason that it was so bad is there was a lot of competition with invasive species, and that blocked a lot of speciation processes. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but our late Devonian here happened in multiple stages. So, if you want to survive a mass extinction, how are you going to do it? There's factors that promote species survival. The first is a large biogeographic range, broad ecology. Pigeons live everywhere. They're going to do great across the next mass extinction event, right? The reason is that it increases your chances that you are living in an environment that is tolerable. So populations may make it through. Being in the right place. For example, the asteroid impact that caused the KPG boundary extinction hit right here on the southern side of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. If you lived anywhere near here, it was a bad day for you. If you were over here, you might have had a slightly better chance of survival. Pre-adapted to environmental changes. For example, mammals did pretty well across the KPG boundary. Most of them were smaller, or they had burrowing lifestyles. So when the asteroid impact came and there was dust everywhere and they were burning fires and things like that, smaller size meant you needed fewer resources. Burrowing lifestyle meant that you were slightly more better adapted to being away from a lot of the bad environmental changes going on. So Cretaceous mammals did do much better than the non-avian dinosaurs. All of these are extinct. That leads us to the big 5 mass extinctions. The Ordovician to Silurian, the Late Devonian, the Permo-Triassic, the Triassic-Jurassic, and the End Cretaceous. There might be some caveats. All right. For example, during the Great Oxygenation Event, there was likely a mass extinction of anaerobic bacteria, things that oxygen and doesn't really mix with. However, we can't really confirm that because most of everything that was alive at that time was just soft squiggly bacteria, so it's really difficult to track that in the fossil record. So other mass extinctions may be apparent with better sampling, global sampling. Similarly, many of our mass extinctions may not be as dramatic as Raup and Sepkowski originally calculated. Remember that a lot of our data is based in North America and Europe. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that maybe in other parts of the world, the mass extinctions weren't as dramatic as they seemed. That information is still being worked out. All right, Ordovician to Silurian. Who died? So, a lot of things. We'll talk about that in just a second, but we lost 50 to 60% of our genera, 85% of our species. This is what the world looked like. There were 2 events close together. We had a global warming and a global cooling event happening really quickly, back to back. So massive amounts of climate change. Brachiopods and bryozoans were really hard hit. Conodonts, graptolites, trilobites, bivalves, corals, and echinoderms, along with various planktonic organisms, were all hit. This was a pretty large mass extinction. Now, diversity compared to now was much lower, so the ecological impact was not nearly as bad, but still a major mass extinction. Echinoderms were extremely hard hit during this time. Again, this was because of global cooling from carbon dioxide drawdown, which led to increased weathering, which led to sea level fall. We could actually see a lot of glacier evidence in the Sahara Desert, which of course isn't too terribly surprising. It was right around here. Excuse me, there we go, it's labeled. So there was a whole lot of habitat loss from the loss of epicontinental seas, altering of circulations, and this is called the End Hernantian glaciation. But right before that, we did have the Boda warming event, where things got really, really, really warm, sea levels rose, things that lived in the colder parts probably did not like that so much, and then really quickly, geologically speaking, it got very cold again. So again, how might this data be biased? If we're looking at a global cooling and a loss of habitat, we're also looking at a loss of rock record. And if we're measuring most of our data off of North America here, Baltica, that's Europe, as well as Avalonia here, this is all Europe, okay? And North America, this is a very different environmental regime happening here. Most of this is in polar regions. So we really haven't based our information on global standards. So a lot of that information will be changing. All right, so the Late Devonian. This was a series of events that occurred. Depending on who you ask, there's a whole bunch of different answers. There could be 2 to 7 different events. 19% of families and 50% of genera died. Now, although critters were on land, it really seems to have impacted the oceans most, but again, our fossil record of terrestrial organisms is not nearly as good. Our reef builders and other tropical taxa were badly affected. We lose a lot of really cool fish, like these armored fish here. This is Dunkleosteus. It even has armored eyeballs. It is estimated to have tooth strength about what a great white shark would have today. However, you can see they're pretty inefficient. They're giant, not very hydrodynamic. So probably not a surprise they went extinct. Now, the late Devonian, again, remember, this was not so much a mass extinction, but a mass depletion of different species, or of speciation being extremely reduced. This was due to a lot of competition that was probably driven by a lot of these particular events. There was a large igneous province, which is the LIP, which is how we'll refer to them, volcanism. Oceanonoxia, there's a lot of black shale, which indicates that oxygen levels in the ocean were much lower. There was a lot of vascular plants all of a sudden, which could have increased massive global cooling. Again, remember, these were pulsed events. There's a lot of changes in sea level, probably sea level falls, which increased in sea level rises, and those probably increased competition and predation and disease. Again, here's what this biodiversity crisis looks like at the time. You can see that our speciation rates decline rapidly throughout the Devonian, especially into the early Frasnian and Fomenian. So research suggests that extinction events really weren't that elevated, but speciation rates were extremely low. Now, the Permo-Triassic. This is very much a real extinction event. No real bias is hiding this here. 96% of species went extinct at this time, which is pretty bad, right? So here we have the Permo-Triassic. We see that mass decline, and you can see that's happening relatively quickly. So in the sea, trilobites, eurypterids, goniotites, which are a type of ammonoid, blastoids, acanthodian fish, rugose, and tabulate corals, lots of sessile benthic critters went extinct. On land, lots of different things suffered. Many of our mammal-like reptiles went extinct. Luckily not all of them, because we're still here today. Amphibians and reptiles were extremely hard hit as well. Plants even suffered losses, which shows how extreme this was. We even find a coal gap, which means that we lost a lot of plants because we really don't have coal sediments from this time. So how this occurred, we think, and we have a lot of evidence to suggest this, we have the Siberian traps, which were absolutely massive volcanic eruptions at the time, leading to a lot of sulfuric acid and different types of noxious gases, carbon dioxide, leading to extremely warm temperatures, that led to ocean acidification, oceanonoxia, possibly ozone depletion, volcanic darkness, meaning plants would have a really difficult time getting sunlight, acid rain, which of course many organisms do not like. So this led to both a marine and a terrestrial mass extinction of epic proportions. So, CO2 is probably really bad, right? Oh no. If we change this word to anthropogenic, meaning caused by humans, emissions, we have a mass amount of carbon dioxide emissions going into the Earth right now, at a much higher rate than we've ever seen. Not the highest amount, but the fastest rate. It is leading to the exact same things. So just because volcanoes are producing it, or humans are producing it, doesn't actually lead to different effects. So our insect community is collapsing. Insects are going extinct faster than we can count them. There are estimates saying that there are many insects that will go extinct before we even knew they existed in modern day times. Coral decline in the Great Barrier Reef is unprecedented. Does that mean there's nothing we can do? Absolutely not. There's a lot that we can do. Alright, back to mass extinctions of the past. Triassic, Jurassic. This one doesn't get a whole lot of attention. First, most everything just died a couple million years after the couple million years ago in the Permo-Triassic, but it still managed to kill off approximately 75% of species. Conodonts finally kick the bucket at this point in time. Those are those creepy little organisms that have all those little teeth. A lot of large vertebrates, like large amphibians, early synapsids, which lead to mammals, early archosaurs, the group that includes gators and dinosaurs. We have evidence to suggest that there is yet another large igneous province, volcanism. This is called the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province Camp, which probably increased CO2. Global warming estimates up to 6 degrees Celsius higher. All right, there's a lot of ocean acidification. We had a lot of what we call a clathrate gun, which is a massive negative carbon isotope shift, indicating that plants were having a little bit of a tough time here. Now, there's a possible bolide impact, but we're not totally sure. There's a small crater in France, probably too small to have done global damage. Now, the end Cretaceous, the one that is the most highlighted and blown out of proportion, right? This is the poster child of mass extinctions because dinosaurs kick the bucket. And we're so obsessed with dinosaurs as a culture, right? Which makes sense. They're pretty cool. So, the idea here is that dinosaurs died, leaving the way for mammals to take over. That story is not necessarily true. First off, dinosaurs are still around. And second, dinosaurs still outcompete mammals 2 species to 1. There's many more species of birds than there are mammals. So, did dinosaurs actually give up their reign? Not really. But we also lose a lot of other really cool organisms. Ammonites are completely gone from the seas. Belemnites, rudist bivalves, the large bivalves, pliosaurs, plesiosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs and pterosaurs are gone. Sharks are really hard hit. Lots of mammals, reptiles die. Plants die as well. Again, not all the dinosaurs died. If you look into the eyes of a living shoebill stork, you will know it down to your bones that this shares a lot of DNA with our good old friend T-Rex. As does this, believe it or not. So what killed the dinosaurs? The more popular the science, the more outlandish the hypotheses that show up, or speculations. Some folks have literally said maybe it was giant caterpillars, maybe it was mass blindness, solar flares. Some even said they drowned in their own poop. Yes, really. So for the longest time, we really didn't have an answer, and we thought, okay, well, maybe it's just generic climate change. I don't know. We don't know for sure it wasn't smoking, so wouldn't test it. All right. So back in the 1980s, Walter and Walter Alvarez, a father-son geophysics duo, found a layer of iridium in Italy. And that layer of iridium was dated to 65 million years ago. Here is that layer of iridium right here. It is the lighter colored material. So this actually marks our global stratigraphic boundary at 65 point something million years ago. We also start finding shocked quartz. Shocked quartz is something that has altered quartz so much it actually gives it what looks like cleavage. You know, being a geologist, that quartz does not have cleavage. It has fracture patterns, but no cleavage. So something really, really shocking must have happened to this quartz, which would be an asteroid impact. It's the only thing we can do. And tektites. Tektites are blobs of molten rock that have actually dried as they're coming back down through the air, giving it this drop-like texture. Again, indicative of an asteroid impact. Now, why is iridium evidence for an asteroid impact? Well, this is going to take us back a little bit to chemistry, understanding chemistry and the origins of Earth. Heavy elements, anything heavier or iron, anything heavier than iron and up, so an atomic number 26, is only produced in a supernova explosion. It takes many, many, many atoms to smack together at the same time to create something that heavy, and the only time that we'll actually see that is during a supernova explosion. So whenever we see a lot of iridium on Earth that's closer towards the crust, we can assume that it came to Earth after Earth's formation. Why? Because our densest material sank down to the core during Earth's formation. So our iron, our nickel, and all that heavy element stuff is down in the core. So if we have some on the crust, it came in much later. All right? So that's why iridium supports the idea of an asteroid impact. Now, there's also a massive hole in the Yucatan Peninsula. Huge. The melt products under the crater are dated exactly to the KPG boundary. It took us a long time to find it because half of it is underwater, half of it is covered in trees, which is why trees are a geologist's enemy. There's also evidence of turbidite and tsunami deposits, even far away from the crater, extending out all the way around here. Now, there was also another event that happened. This is called the Deccan Traps in India, and it covers a significant portion of India, and this is estimated to be the 1-2 punch of the KPG extinction. Lots of volcanism and an asteroid impact at the same within the same time frame. There's a lot of arguments now. Oh, this is the Deccan Trap. As you can see, it's massive because India is a very large piece of land. Again, a trap is just igneous rock from a volcano. So here we have an idea. Here we have the impact. It would have triggered incredibly powerful seismic waves. It is possible, some folks have said it is possible, that the seismic waves could have been strong enough to trigger volcanic eruptions from very far away. So from here all the way on over to there. Some folks think that the two events are completely unrelated. And some folks think that the asteroid had nothing to do with the extinction at all. It is very unlikely that the asteroid had nothing to do with it. Whether or not the asteroid and the volcanism are linked to one major event, or if they were two separate bad luck events, I don't know. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest both answers at this point. But the aftermath of the extinction, this is what it would have looked like. This is a grayscale graph. For the first nearly 30 weeks of the extinction, we actually lose most of our solar radiation. It would have taken about 30 weeks for plants to be able to photosynthesize, which means a lot of plants were not able to survive, making this a very bad mass extinction. So is there a pattern to all of this? As you're probably picked up on, I kept saying large igneous province. There seems to be a relationship between large igneous provinces and mass extinctions. We see them quite often. Not all large igneous provinces are associated with mass extinction events, but all of them, except for the Ordovician to Silurian extinction, are associated with LIPs, including a lot of smaller extinction events, like some that happened throughout the Paleozoic and Mesozoic. So there might be an extinction of a relationship there. And how large is a large igneous province? Pretty large. Here are a lot of our large igneous provinces highlighted here. You can see the Siberian Trap is really one of the largest. Alright, so this leads us to the end of our lecture. There's a couple different things that happen after the extinction events. The first is disaster taxa, organisms that can take over areas that have been recently evacuated, essentially. Stromatolites are really good disaster taxa. They're opportunists. They'll come take over areas that have lower competition. We also have Elvis taxa. Elvis taxa are things that we mistake for another organism. So Elvis taxa are things that look very similar to other organisms, but they're not evolutionarily closely related, so it's convergent evolution. And we get this name because of the large number of Elvis impersonators, no lie. So this is one of the most famous Elvis taxa, Rhytania gregaria. So it's a type of brachiopod, and it looks very similar to other types. So this can confuse our understanding of a mass extinction. We think it's still alive, but it's actually not. It's extinct. On the opposite, we have Lazarus taxa, where we think something is extinct, but it's actually not. This is the coelacanth. We thought it was extinct since the Cretaceous, but they're still alive today. Recovery intervals can be extensive. The reef gap after the Permo-Triassic was 10 to 20 million years. The coal gap after the Permo-Triassic was 2 to 25 million years, so it can take many millions of years to recover. It allows replacement of dominant taxa by others. We've already talked about this with brachiopods and bivalves, but therapsids, mammal-like reptiles, were replaced by crocodilians in the Mesozoic. Crocodilians were replaced by dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were replaced by small mammals. We see these dominant taxa being replaced through time. Excuse me. And finally, we see macroevolutionary bottlenecks, where we lose a lot of genetic variation after a mass extinction. Echinoids after the Permo-Triassic all have this very stereotypical sideroid-like plating structures. We lose a lot of that diversity across the PT boundary. So now this leads us to the final question. Are we in a sixth mass extinction? So rates of loss in our biodiversity are equal or higher than the Permo-Triassic, and it's happening faster. We know that if there is a sixth mass extinction, it's caused by humans, with habitat loss, anthropogenic emissions leading to climate change, also leading to ocean acidification, and leading to invasive species. Florida is like the capital of invasive species in the world. So we see that there are a lot of issues leading towards this sixth mass extinction. So some people might say, okay, but climate change has clearly already been happening. Why care about it now? Well, it's happening at a rate 15 times higher than the last time we saw such huge increases in carbon dioxide, which is an event called the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, where we had mass biodiversity losses as well. So there's no real reason to think that something different would happen with the same materials. So if carbon dioxide is on the rise, we can expect to see a lot of the same things, like ocean acidification, changes in ocean circulation, habitat loss, etc. So that's something to think about as we move forward. How can we use the fossil record to understand how mass extinctions might happen in the future? Here are your review questions. I will see you back for the next lecture series.
Not going to push for the movement's goals. Feminism in hating men, the family,
Oh, no, not you.
society, and the
No.
like leaves women feeling isolated.
No, autoplay. I left autoplay on. No, dear God. There we are. We're safe. It's okay, everyone.
Level 3 security clearance required.
Is there a proper date set for a debate with Haas? We agreed on the 20th, so we're going to be spending the next couple of weeks doing research streams into the Ukrainian situation with a special emphasis on the Donbass. I wonder if I can get Dylan Burns involved in that. He would be very knowledgeable. He might be somebody worth talking to. Game's got spooky music and it's giving me weaponry. This signals a bad time. Oh my god, how are you still alive?
Power transferred from auto purification to ADS cannons.
We got it. The ADS cannons are back online. Wait, auto-targeting offline. Calibration data not found. Fuck. No auto-targeting. The cannons are useless.
What about manual targeting?
You want to go out there with all that shit raining down and target the ADS cannons manually?
If I give the cannons enough targeting data, it'll recalibrate the system. You got a better idea?
Christ. I'll open exterior access. I hope you know what you're doing. What's the plan?
I'll sync a few of the ADS cannons to one of my tools. I target an asteroid, the cannons take it out, and I recalibrate the system.
We're out of options. Do it.
Security request retrieved.
Oh, God! Someone stop him! This is Second Officer Sheik. I need security here right now. No one's coming. White, for Christ's sake, step away from the controls. We need our first officer. Captain Matthias is dead. The captain's dead. Vincent's security team is dead. Who's left? Step away from the airlock. That's an order. Who's left, Sheik? A crew full of uni fanatics? Eckhart screwed us good, didn't he? If a CEC director could go that bad, maybe the whole company's rotten to the core. Just like Aegis 7. You think CEC won't send a rescue team for their precious planet cracker? Think twice. We just need to hold on. Yes. You probably should. No, stop! Oh, what? Goddamn fool! Seal it! Seal the airlock now!
Oh, do we know what level Sunday is at yet? No, we don't. Let's find out. Alas, nothing yet. Soon, I am sure.
Entering vacuum. Entering zero gravity. Syncing targeting system. Warning. Hull integrity compromised. Syncing targeting system.
Well, that didn't work.
Entering vacuum. Entering zero gravity. Syncing targeting system. Syncing targeting system. Syncing targeting system. Warning. Hull integrity compromised.
I don't get it. What am I supposed to do here?
Entering vacuum. Entering zero gravity.
I don't understand what I'm being told to do here.
Syncing targeting system.
Oh my god. Oh, I see. Okay.
Calibration complete. Cannon auto-targeting online. Warning. Hull integrity compromised. Syncing targeting system. Calibration complete. Cannon auto-targeting online. Syncing targeting system. Data migration complete. ADS recalibrated. Auto-targeting systems enabled.
They're back. The ADS cannons are online ship-wide. Thank God. Engaging autopilot. Get yourself inside, Isaac. I think I figured out our next move.
Exiting zero gravity. Exiting vacuum.
Isaac, Hammond, I just intercepted a transmission from medical.
Someone's down there?
See what you make of this.
This is Senior Medical Officer Nicole Brennan. Medical is a sanctuary. All survivors, please join us.
Nicole, I'm going back to medical.
Makes sense.
I'll head to the crew deck and look for survivors from the bridge. I'll be in touch.
The crew deck. Wonder if you know something we don't.
Oh, shoot, that thing. Nope.
Determine clearance level. Master security override required.
Elizabeth, it's Jacob. I came to the bridge looking for you, but it is completely fucked. I'm not sticking around in case whatever did it comes back, and neither should you. It looks like the admin staff went to the mining deck to meet up with the other survivors. I'll head there too. If you aren't with them, I'll find a way to contact you. I promise.
I like Hawes' take on Avatar 2, specifically the part where he calls Pandora a smart city. He is onto something but doesn't understand or know the history or the ideology of ecology and transhumanism. Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Level 3 security clearance required.
Contact beam. What is that? Okay, first of all. $20,000, huh? Alrighty then. I think we're gonna call it here for the night, guys. And tomorrow we have Brooks back on. We're going to be continuing with Anti-Oedipus, the body without organs. Have a good night, everyone. Take care. Next week we will begin doing preparation research for the Haas debate. We intend to make him weep. Have a good night.